Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Citizens for United Johnsburg Town Hall. My name is Jason Blumenthal, and I have the honor of moderating this discussion. Thank you all for taking the time to be here, whether in person or online. Your engagement is what makes our community strong, and we appreciate your commitment to its future. Today's purpose is straightforward. Each of the United Johnsburg candidates will go over the key 10 points of the campaign, issues they believe are essential to the growth, safety, and prosperity of our village. After that, we will open the floor for questions, including those from our online attendees. To keep this meeting productive and respectful, we have a few simple ground rules. One, a respectful dialogue. We are here for an open exchange of ideas. Disruption, shouting, and/or personal attacks will not be tolerated. Let's focus on the issues at hand. Second, structured discussions. The candidates will present the 10 points first. We ask that you hold all questions until the question and answer session. Third, one speaker at a time. During questions and answers, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, or for online attendees, submit your questions in the chat. If at any time during this forum I feel it is becoming disruptive or off topic, I will respectfully move us on. Fourth, time limits. To ensure fairness, each speaker will have a set time to ask their questions or respond. If necessary, I will step in to keep us on track. My role is to facilitate a smooth and fair discussion. If at any time this meeting becomes unruly, I will pause the discussion until we can continue in a respectful manner. So with that, I'll turn it over to our candidates here and get started. Thank you all again for being here and for being dedicated to your community.
Yes, thank you guys very much. So if we could stand and we'll do the pledge really quickly. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so again, as Jason said, thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for watching on Facebook. We appreciate your participation in the basic rights of us as Americans to through a good, solid election. So we'll get started with our presentation. Let's see if all this stuff works. So my name is Josh Hagan. I'm running for re-election as your village trustee. I've been a trustee for coming up on 8 years now. I'm a lifelong resident of Johnsburg, graduated in 2003 with the Carthage College, graduated there in 2007 with a business administration and marketing degrees and a minor in economics. My wife Sarah and I, we started dating in high school at Johnsburg High School, and we've been married now for 20 years. I have 5 kids, 3 boys and 2 girls. With Sarah, I own a couple businesses in town, Prem Magnetics and Remington Industries, as well as Remington Farm and Hagan LLC, our property company. I'm currently the chairman of the Economic Development Committee, board member and past president of the Johnsburg Area Business Association, also a member of Joyful Harvest Church, and a former DCFS foster parent until we adopted our girls a number of years ago. So just to say that I'm really fully invested in this community, and my entire life is here. So I'm very honored to be able to have done this for 8 years, and hopefully that with your help be able to do it for another 4.
I'm J.D. Sylvanus. I also a lifelong resident of Johnsburg, graduated Johnsburg High School in 2005, graduated from Lakeland University in 2009 with my bachelor's in business management, double bachelor's business management and computer science. I live in town, obviously, with my wife Beth and our 3 kids. So my daughter Lila's 13, my son Casey's 8, and our daughter Claire just turned 1 in December here. So we're a young family in Johnsburg, and figuring out what it's like to have a newborn again with the kids kind of spaced apart. So I was asked earlier, actually, jump into the bio, if I was nervous about the meeting today and speech and speaking and kind of question and answers. And my son is actually wrestling right now for a chance to go downstate. So that's where a little bit of my nerves and shakiness come from. Is his next match is going to be a good one. So yeah, so Casey's wrestling big tournament today. With that, I am involved in the wrestling community a lot as a a coach for our Spartan Wrestling Club. I'm the head wrestling coach at Johnsburg High School, also a head coach at Johnsburg Junior High School. Additionally, I'm a coach for Johnsburg football, head coach for our JV football program and defensive coordinator there. I sit as a vice president of our Johnsburg Junior Skyhawks, vice president of Johnsburg Area Wrestling. I'm a member of the finance committee. I'm part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, so I have the opportunity to work with a lot of students at Johnsburg Junior High School and Johnsburg High School in a lunch buddy and a mentor program. I'm also head of our CIFA football organization, which oversees 13 organizations across 108 teams in the junior football scene there. And I think that's everything. But I'm running for one of the open trustee positions as well. So being committed and dedicated to Johnsburg. Ever since I graduated college and started into 1 month out of graduation, I started into my coaching and mentor roles. Haven't really looked back since. So the trustee position for me is my next step in becoming involved and bringing something at a higher level to the community.
All right, and I'm Keith Von Allman, and I'm the retired police chief here from Johnsburg. I retired in 2023 after 28 years, and I took a position as the chief investigator at the McHenry County State's Attorney's Office, and I lead our Crimes Against Children task force for the county. I am married to my wife Laura and have some children. I also own a few businesses, so I own Property Management Solutions here in town. I own the Sandbar and Island Grill in Twin Lakes, and I'm a polygraph examiner, so I own Veritruth Polygraph Services. So enough about who I am, my background. Obviously, I stand for public safety first, lower taxes and responsibility, and building stronger relationships. And I think today, through our presentation, you're going to see some consistency among the three of us, right, in what our priorities are. And I think you're going to clearly see how we have a complete understanding that the money the government spends is our money, right? And that even as the chief of police, every year during budget process or when making purchases, I always kept in my mind, in the front of my mind, that this money is my money too, right? So I never had a problem defending, spending the money through the budget for the police department. I just want to say I'm not running for a title. I'm running to serve and to lead and to make a difference. And I think that every year there's new challenges, right, for the village, just like in our personal lives, right? And we have to be smart and always trying to be the most effective and as efficient as we can, right? And I think together we can build a safer and stronger and a more prosperous Johnsburg, right? So, and hopefully you'll see putting more money back in our pockets, right? So.
Okay. Hello.
All right, mine works. Okay, so we're going to go right into the 10 points, right? These are our 10 specific points. These are our commitments to you and to all the people of Johnsburg. Okay, so, and I think the first point is, who takes the first
That's
point?
me.
I know it's not.
We'll pass the mic very inconveniently. So, again, these are our 10 points that we really feel are the way forward for Johnsburg. These are the things that we feel are very important, that are currently somewhat lacking in a lot of places, and ways that we feel that we can add value and improve this community for our residents. So,
Can I ask all three of you, just make sure we're talking into the mic, apparently we're having a volume issue.
is it that better? Okay.
Yeah.
I have essentially swallowed it. So our first point, First point is communication. So with this one, right, what we want to do is we want to foster an open dialogue with between local government and our residents. What I've seen over the years is that residents and stakeholders often feel like they're uninformed about what's happening in the village, right? I hear that comment all the time. That news and information doesn't reach them unless they're associated with the right groups. So information about village events and projects and just reporting in general, really it needs to be available to everybody. We're all residents here, we all have a stake. This is our village, and it needs to be available to everybody through multiple channels, meaning you need to be able to access that information wherever you want to access it. So our plan is really to greatly improve that process by which residents and stakeholders can communicate with the village. So your voice, it should be heard, even though you don't know the right people. Your opportunities to be heard should be more than just 5 minutes of public commentary at a board meeting. And you definitely don't want to walk away after giving your comments or your opinions and feel like you've been ignored or disenfranchised, right? And unfortunately, too often, that seems to be what's happening. So how do we plan to take that? So first thing that we want to do, one of the things we want to do, I should say, is we want to implement regular town hall meetings and community forums. This recently came forward, especially with the Kelly's gas station development. We want to consistently have organized events from the Village of Johnsburg that inform residents and stakeholders about the projects and activities that are going to affect them, right? Again, we all live here. Even though this project may be happening across town, not near your home, you still deserve to know what's going on. So it's the responsibility of the village to keep the residents informed, and their voices need to be heard at the same time. They need to be able to offer constructive feedback, and the village needs to take that information, and we need to have a forum in which they can do that. So with all of these big projects that come through, and there's a couple of them every year, we need to make sure that we get out ahead of these things so that there's no misinformation, there's no misunderstanding, and just, again, it is simply our responsibility as the village to make sure that everybody feels like they play a part, because it's their village. And really, I mean, all of this stuff needs to be done well in advance of a shovel going in the ground, right? And we have done this in the past. I remember, Holly probably remembers, I remember you being there, the project at the old Bush School, the Berkshire project. We held a town hall meeting at the community club, and there was some not so happy commentary that came out of that, but still it was good to hear that information directly from the residents that were going to be affected, as well as anybody else in the village that wanted to understand what was going on. So that is one way that again, we need to get out front and be the ones that drive the conversation to make sure that people understand what's going on. The next one, we need to utilize social media and quarterly newsletters for updates, right? We have a lot of different forums for which we can talk to people in town. It's become very easy, and we need to meet people where they are. Meaning, we need to go out of our way to get the information out in multiple ways, so it can get to everybody across the board. We need to, again, utilize the platforms that we already have. Our Facebook accounts, our e-blast system, which is great. If you guys are not signed up for that currently, it is a really good method of getting information out, but it's a lot of email addresses that we can use to inform residents of what's going on. And because everybody consumes that information differently, we need to do everything, absolutely everything. And technology makes it so easy and inexpensive now, right? It's going to take a little bit to encourage those that are not very technologically savvy to get on those platforms versus using the mail, which is still, I feel mail should still be used in some small regards, especially, like posting certified letters for projects coming up in the immediate area of some people, but still, it's very, very expensive. Like that letter that just went out a couple of weeks ago, if you guys received that from the village with the year-end update, it was about $3,500, I believe, to send out to everybody. So very expensive. It's very expensive to put those things through. So while it's an available thing, we need to use it in certain cases. We really need to push for using more efficient methods of communication that are available to us. Let's see, where did I have that? So, I'll probably get to that. So we can also use those tools as a marketing tool for the village, right? Again, we can push information out to residents so that they can pass that information along, but it's also available to anybody, not just residents, unlike letters, that care to keep in touch with the village and see what's going on. So, and then the last one on this slide is live streaming of village board meetings. Again, village board meetings are the first and third Tuesdays of every month, 7 p.m. at the village hall. However, we very rarely have much of an audience unless there's some large issue that's taking place. And we have a large audience, and it's great to have people come out and communicate with us, but generally it's not, again, not a very big crowd. So we need to utilize the tools that we already have in place. And we already have the technology to be able to immediately live stream the meetings. And we need to make it so that the village can get this information out to anybody that wants to have it. It's there, it's your village, you need to have complete access. It shouldn't be that, well, you didn't make a meeting, so you don't have any idea what's going on, right? And that really comes back to allowing as many people as possible to participate with what's happening here. You know, again, we see so often that it's just a small group that knows what's going on, and that's not really fair to everybody else. So in summary, with communication, all residents and stakeholders should have access to the same information, right? And it should be given to them in ways that work for them. That's not just convenient for the village of Johnsburg, it needs to be convenient for residents. It's two-way communication that's really going to foster the best ideas, right? Getting feedback from residents is how idea generation will help a project to define its goals better, and again, just we'll be able to pursue these projects with more information when we get that buy-in. And finally, it's very little work and cost to implement these changes, but it will greatly improve community engagement, right? So communication is something that is certainly an opportunity for us that we can tackle with relative ease. So moving on from that one, get to go slide number 2 also. So transparency is another one, and this goes hand in hand with communication in some ways. But really, this whole slide boils down to the village of Johnsburg needs to become an oversharer, right? We all know those people that they take a 30-second story and they turn it into this 15-minute word vomit. And while that's not always the best for trying to move a conversation along, it's really what you want to see from your government at every level. You want to see them making information available to you, even when you don't necessarily want it, but some other people do, or maybe you will down the road. So we understand that some of the information that is being discussed about projects or upcoming plans can't be released immediately. That's just the nature of it, that these developers don't want that information to get out until they're ready for it to be released publicly. But once it's past that stage, then the public deserves to know. They deserve to know exactly what's going on across the village. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to provide clear and accessible reports. What that means is simply we want to go beyond simply providing the required minimums, right? The village of Johnsburg is in compliance with everything that we put out. But we also don't have to seek to release only the minimum amount of information that is required by laws and ordinances. So with financial reports, with minutes, with agendas, with any other informational documents, we can release pretty much all of that publicly. And it can be available to you. And really by only meeting the minimum requirements, I feel that we're not working to build the community's trust in what information we're trying to put out. The next one is to establish an open door policy. So this really goes back to making information requests. If somebody comes to the village and requests information of some kind, more easier and more comprehensive. You typically think of this as a FOIA request, but it's something simpler than that too. But a FOIA is a Freedom of Information Act request, right? So you can come in and request details about something with a simple form. But the process itself can be cumbersome. And again, the village really needs to work with the requester, not against them, right? It's not always somebody trying to pin something on the village that the village doesn't want to come out. So I feel that the village needs to understand the needs of this requester so that we can drill out the information and get them the information that they want to see in a helpful manner. And it really is just a way to encourage engagement between the residents and the village, and also just promote good governance. And one of the things that I would really like to see, and we're working on this, is make more information available via self-service, right? I mean, we have limited staff at the village hall, so it's to have them have to gather all this information manually is very difficult. My committee and I, the Economic Development Committee and I, started the project to develop a new village website. And this was back late last year, and we're looking at releasing it here probably within the next couple of weeks, hopefully by mid-March. But the big push for that website was that it will serve as an information hub so residents can find what they need quickly, right? I don't know if you guys have ever used the current website to try and find information. It is awful. And it's, again, I mean, that was developed in 2016, 2007. It was released in 2016. And it's just older technology. So we researched a bunch of development firms, and we found one that we thought was very user-friendly, very user-intuitive, and it allows us, it has the capability for us to put out information that's easy to find with just simple searches. So that's going to be a great tool to help us get information out. But at the same time, we'll be able to increase the productivity of staff because people won't be calling in asking for information that they can't find, right? So it's really going to provide greater transparency when that information is always available. So that'll be a big opportunity. Plus, just simple, more thorough calendar. People will know what's going on. They'll be able to know who is involved with the village, the different committees, and we're hoping to, again, just increase awareness and information about what people know about the village of Johnsburg. And then really the last three together, so posting audio from committee meetings, right? The audio and video is posted from board meetings, but all the audio is collected from the committee meetings that take place too. Making the board meetings supporting documents publicly available, right? I know that's been an often requested thing, and again, instead of just a simple one-line explanation, making the actual documents that are coming before the board available so the public is able to see exactly what we're seeing. And then providing more details about what's being discussed on agendas. So again, just in terms of transparency, that gives you a better idea of what's actually coming before the board prior to it being discussed. So these are all ways to provide more information and transparency to residents without them having to ask. So, in summary of transparency, what we plan to do to make the village of Johnsburg more transparent. Transparency, accountability, and good governance. These are all things that will build, again, greater trust between the village and its residents. And our plan is to make access to this information easy, right? Very easy, not vague and in some cases essentially inaccessible. And we want to make that information clear to understand and inclusive for anybody that is interested to see that. So that's our plan for transparency.
And we would hope that through our campaign process, communication and transparency is something that to the level and to the extent we can do, we are doing it, right? We try, I'd say we're almost 100% on responding back to anything on Facebook, I know I've had several additional phone calls, emails, private messages back and forth. We're very transparent with the things that we do in the community. So these aren't just things that we will begin to do if we're fortunate enough to get elected, but these are things that we will continue to do just on a larger scale within the village. So non-highway vehicle and developing a comprehensive plan. I've been very active on Facebook to make sure people know that I do have a golf cart and I enjoy the golf cart and UTV program in Johnsburg. But where I think we can continue to build on that, and again, a lot of this will piggyback on the communication aspects, but just developing policies for safe use of those, and regulating them throughout the community, right? So having clear guidelines to ensure safe and regulated use of golf carts and UTVs, and addressing issues like speed limits, operating age, and safety equipment. There's always the comparison to, just like driving a vehicle, right? There's always bad apples. So whenever there's something negative in the community with golf carts or UTVs, oftentimes it's diluted with the comment of, that happens all the time, should we take away cars too? Well, obviously not. We shouldn't do that. But we should hold golf carts and UTVs to the same standards that we hold vehicles, right? So there shouldn't be underage driving, right? You shouldn't be able to drink and drive on a golf cart or UTV, right? And in my opinion, I do think that I do think we're allowing within this program, we're limiting the conversations on it until something big happens, right? Until a kid's hit by a golf cart or a UTV, right? Until there's a major accident. Then we'll be more reactive than proactive, right? So that's really the point of that's really the point of when we talk about our points of emphasis here on this one specifically, is how can we be proactive in this already established program to continue to build on it, right? Communicate out exactly where those paths are, what the expectations are when you are operating golf carts or UTVs within the community. So that kind of goes into designated routes and safety guidelines. So making sure that we have those specific routes for vehicles to minimize risk to pedestrians, right, and other drivers, and provide the safety instructions to users. I know that we have, when getting the license or when getting registered, right, our safety officer comes around and checks and makes sure the seat belts are there, the license plates, the turn signals, the lights, all those safety inspections. But then operating the vehicle, right? Having a map with approval of landowners where we can officially drive golf carts and UTVs, right? And not, it's okay because we've been doing it type mentality, right? Something that is in writing, something that is insured, and it's communicated and it's approved by those landowners. So having those designated routes, safety guidelines, I think does nothing but enhance our program, right? Collaborating with law enforcement, so looking at things where if it is an event with golf carts or UTVs kind of as the focal point of that event, we're not turning a blind eye because we're raising money, right? It should still be held to the same standard as a vehicle, right? When you talk about things like pub crawls, gatherings, right? Anything like that, parking, right? Again, it falls back into that communication. How can we continue to communicate out the rules and regulations, and then help support the law enforcement in Johnsburg to hold people to those rules and regulations, to whether it's warnings, whether it's tickets, very similar to how we do for operating any other vehicle in Johnsburg or on roads or paths in general. So also looking at creating a 5-year budget, so developing a financial plan for the program over the next 5 years that takes into consideration maintenance, enforcement, and safety measures. Again, the focal point here is not being reactive to things that happen, right? As paths get worn down, now we have to find the money. Now we have to look for a fund or investors or lean on village workers or staff or taxpayer dollars to upkeep those paths. Let's have a plan, let's have a fund, and very similar to what we do with our our village, with the roads and anything in our village, there's plans 5-10 years out to take care of general wear and tear, right? So definitely looking at that from a budget standpoint. And then self-sustaining program, right? So ensure that the program becomes financially self-sustaining by generating funds through that registration. So our registration fees for the license plate, are they matching the need for upkeep of those paths, upkeep of enforcing the rules and regulations, right? Or are the fees too low? So I think looking at that and making sure that this program can become self-sustaining within the fees that we do charge is important for not only the growth of the program, but just the continued development of that program. So really, in summary, again, I drive my golf cart more than my vehicle when weather's even if weather's not permitting, right? It's a little rough. I'll still drive my golf cart, right? But I like the idea of knowing that I'm always on the right path, right? I'm following the law, and that I'm not disrupting people who may not have golf carts or UTVs, right? So just abiding by the law and knowing that it is being enforced, right? Stopping, speed limits, noise violation, right? I have speakers on my golf cart. I make it a point after a certain time to not have my speakers very loud or even use them, right? Because that can be disturbing to public as you're driving through neighborhoods and on designated paths. So really, it's about continuing to grow and develop the program in a responsible way. That'll be a big focus of ours as we move into our roles.
Me again.
Oh, I just assumed.
You get me again. All right, business growth and support. So this one is near and dear to my heart. Small businesses are the lifeblood, right? I know a bunch of you guys here are small business owners, and for a community, they're vital because many owners rather, they live in the community in which they own their businesses. They work there, obviously, or they have children, right? So they contribute a lot back to their community, and it really is the village's role to find ways to help them thrive. So what can the village do for small businesses specifically? Again, from the village's standpoint, they can create regulations that encourage growth and development. They really need to, when somebody approaches them with an idea, they need to be open to discussing these new ideas. We've come across this recently where if it's not a certain type of business, the conversation ends before even us as the board knows it existed. So just because it doesn't fit a certain type of business, a certain box, it needs to be at least thoroughly discussed so that we can figure out some ways that it may benefit the village as a whole, right? We don't need, and then even when these businesses come in and they want to go in a certain location, we don't need to stick to the rigid rules that we have in place now if we can see and demonstrate some benefit that this business will bring to the village. Another thing that I know is a little touchy, but it's something that my committee has worked on for the last couple of years, but it's something that really can help bring businesses in, is creating incentive programs, right? It's utilizing dollars to try and incentivize businesses to either create new developments or update existing developments. We created a facade improvement program for, we call it the downtown corridor, but it's really, again, you guys know obviously how we're kind of spread out. So the downtown downtown area is really kind of broad in that it's the triangle, but it comes all the way down here to about the townhomes, and then goes across the river over to the farm fields that are for sale by Bay Road. So again, it's a pretty broad area, but still, we want to see those properties that have not really had a lot of use in the last number of years. We want to see those get redeveloped because they're big areas of opportunity for the village, for these developers, and if we can help in some way, then that's something that we want to do. We've also worked on other property tax incentives for new developments, right, in conjunction with the school district. And we've also worked on, we have enacted some sales tax incentives in the right scenario, right? Again, we are not, we don't rely on it very heavily right now, but it's something that we are open to, but really we should be more open to if we want to see these developments happen. The next one is large commercial developments. Again, that is a very, very different group to work with. They are difficult to bring in because they're not looking at Johnsburg's charm as a reason to come to the village. They are looking at, do the numbers make sense or do they not, right? That's really what they care about, and if it doesn't make sense to them, then they're going to look elsewhere. But at the same time, we need to do as much as we can to get in front of them and make sure that we are able to offer our areas of opportunity to them. We have a lot of space along Route 31 that is either A, undeveloped or B, underdeveloped, right? There are a lot of empty storefronts there. And I mean, the macroeconomic climate for large format retail is very difficult right now, right? I mean, we're with everything that we all know and use, you know, Amazon has replaced the need for quite so many large format retail stores. So that's where where it's difficult to find a developer to come in and use something like the JCPenney space. It's large, and you need to be able to separate yourself from somebody that can just go online and order something. So again, it's a difficult climate that we're working in, but we still have a lot of traffic on that route. In the next couple of years, we're going to continue to see more traffic travel that route as people come from Wisconsin to work in Illinois and go back. Right now, I believe Route 31 in that area has roughly 23 or 24,000 cars a day, which is a lot, right? So, and again, it's expected to grow as more development happens up north, and as just again, the other developments that are happening around us continue, and people want to come to our Walmart. So we need to be prepared for that. But what we can also do, and haven't done in the past, there are retail trade shows. Typically they take place in Las Vegas is the biggest one, but there's a number of them that are more local too, that are geared towards large retailers. There's also some in Chicago that are geared towards attracting smaller businesses, right? So we need to find the time and prioritize getting in front of these people that are looking for places to bring their developments. So it's gonna, with staff as it is now, it's again it puts pressure on them to find the time to be able to pull away from normal day-to-day work to go do these things. But we need to prioritize these if we really want to go after trying to find new businesses, large retail businesses or commercial businesses to come in town. And then also what we can do, what is available, we've done a little bit of research into this, is working with consultants to, again, same thing, so that we're not traveling out to these trade shows where we don't really have the experience, but working with a consultant that can take a book that we've created to developers and say, this is what Johnsburg has to offer. So again, there's cost associated there, but that is how we get our areas of opportunity in front of these people. There was an article, it was last week or the week before in the Herald, speaking about McHenry putting together 2 new TIF districts. And I mean, their economic development director, who is paid staff, right? I am a volunteer, and this is not my full-time job. So I do everything that I can within my role as a volunteer in trying to spur economic development. But again, it is not my full-time job. But what they are saying as a full-time, experienced, paid staff member is that developers, big developers, will not even look at you unless you offer them something. So that's kind of, we have to keep that in mind as we're looking out at the landscape and saying, who do we want to move here? They're going to come to us and say, what are you going to do for me? So we need to find that middle ground that we can offer them something, but it's not going to hurt us financially. Next thing is developing a comprehensive marketing plan. This goes back to the same thing, developing some kind of book that we can offer and show what we have available to these people that are interested, but they're not, again, they're looking at a number of different municipalities. We have a lot of competition out there that we need to show what we can offer versus what a McHenry can offer, what a Fox Lake can offer, what a Huntley, who's grown like crazy, can offer, right? And we're obviously at a disadvantage to somebody like that with lower population or with, we don't have the same access to large interstates, but we do have a lot of the statistics that they're looking for, such as generally higher incomes, again, just a lot of traffic, and we need to make sure that we focus our marketing efforts on getting that information out. Additionally, we really need to utilize the things that we have to not only again, go after those large format commercial developments, but we need to be able to get small businesses to be able to find us. Somebody that's looking for somewhere to either start a new business or expand their small business that's a couple towns over. They're looking for a new, new area to get in front of. We, as of now, don't do any marketing. I had pushed for some. We did a little bit. The board was not very supportive. We needed. Again, we didn't give it the opportunity I felt that we should have to really make it thrive. But we need to come up with a plan if we want to show up in front of these people, both for new residents coming in and for new businesses coming in. So that's a place where our website is really going to play a huge factor in people being able to come to us and find the information they need in order to make that informed decision about whether or not to move here, both, again, commercial and residential. So that's something that I would really like to see happen. The next one, update zoning and ordinances to encourage growth. Yeah. My wife Sarah seems to make a hobby of going through our ordinances and kind of seeing what's out there and not necessarily current. So we've come across a lot that are either dated or just don't really seem to make the best of sense. But in terms of business growth and support, how can we update our zoning to make it more attractive for them to move here? Really, that comes down to simplifying and clarifying what they need to do to be able to develop their business, right? We need to update our ordinances and our zoning to match today's world, not what it was 20 years ago. Because a lot has changed in that time period, and people are, again, if they can't find a clear path to do what they want to do, they're going to look somewhere else. Another thing that we can do is we can avoid making overly burdensome requirements of people putting in new developments. And that includes housing too, but if we're going to be throwing roadblocks in people's way, again, it's just a disincentive for them to look at us and say, yes, this is where we want to be. And really, we need to be open to these discussions about changes. What has come across the board, and I've really lobbied for some of these businesses that have come in that I, like I said before, did not fit the box that generally the board wants to see, but they bring a benefit to us in some other way. Yes, it may not bring us sales tax dollars, but it may bring employment, right? And we still need to consider those businesses, even if that's not who we want to target. We need to approach these businesses and these owners that are coming to us with an open mind and say, okay, what can we figure out? How can we make this work? We want to see you move into Johnsburg. So, really in summary, I think Johnsburg is well positioned to attract new businesses based on our demographics, based on our location, and based on the available land that we have. Another part of our website currently, and what we'll move forward is, we have a property search function that allows us to display. Commercial properties are not as easy to find as residential properties. You realtors in the audience know that. So we created this to have a single point that these commercial properties that don't have a regular listing online, at least we can showcase what's available. So we have this land that's available to to show to developers. We just need to, again, continue to really make sure we're doing whatever we can to get that out in front of them. And then each new development needs to be judged on its own merit, right? While just because a developer comes to us doesn't mean we need to say yes. You know, we need to look at each one of these things and say, is this going to be an overall net benefit to the village of Johnsburg? We need to look at all the pros and cons, we need to look at the money, we need to look at what's going to affect the residents in the area that this is going to go in. And we need to make an informed decision, not just focus in on one little piece of information. So, our plan really needs to be proactive in attracting new businesses and maintaining existing ones. We need to work with the businesses that we have. We need to make sure that they feel comfortable communicating with us so that when they want to do something, when something comes up, when they have a question, they know who to go to, and we try to help them resolve it as we can as the village of Johnsburg. So, thank you.
Yes, Alden waiting. All right, I have the building strong relationships and partnerships and kind of reigniting our relationship with our neighboring municipalities, the county government and the state. Right, we have to remember that Johnsburg does not operate in a silo. Right, we have to remember that those partnerships that we can that some we have, right, and some that we can make so much better. It saves all of us dollars, right, when we have those partnerships. So, you know, I mean, for example, the state of Illinois has a program where they send millions of items out for bid every year, right? And we have the ability to buy off that state bid, and we do. But again, that's a because that's done oftentimes annually. We constantly have to be looking at that. McHenry County has the same thing. I believe just in the last decade, they've been so proactive at sending things out for bid, right? But we have to have that partnership if we want to benefit from those bids that they take, right? And also our neighbors, right? Our neighboring communities, Fox Lake and McHenry and Lake Moore, Spring Grove. There's so many things that I believe that where we can partner with those communities, right, to save us all tax dollars. Ringwood too, Rick Matt. Sorry, you know, and so again, by working with them and McHenry Township, sorry, Gary. And we have I think the village of Johnsburg has a great relationship with McHenry Township as far as our road programs. You'll see it every year when projects come out that that Johnsburg is partnering. I'm just saying we can do more. That's what I'm saying. We can do more. So, I think that I wanted to talk just a little bit about village impact fees. And so in 2016, 2017, okay, I don't know the exact date, the village of Johnsburg, right, the board decided that they were going to reduce impact fees. What are impact fees? Impact fees are fees paid by developers when they bring new development to your community. What is the purpose of an impact fee? Well, the purpose is to act as a stopgap from when they break ground until they eventually pay their first tax bill, right? So the village of Johnsburg would collect impact fees for the village, right, for services that were being provided, and we also collected for the McHenry Township Fire Protection District, right, for fire and rescue services. We collected them for our school district, right? We collected them for the library. Well, we paused those three, right? So the fire department, the library, and the school, we paused any collection of impact fees for them. Now, does that mean that they're not still providing services, right, for those developments as they're going on? I would say they are still providing services. And the purpose of the impact fee is to act as not just infrastructure, right, to create new infrastructure, but again, for those services, right, for those additional peoples. So I think that we really need to look at that, because if all of a sudden I'm giving you money every month and then I say, no, I'm cutting you off, right? I think that's going to hurt our relationship a little bit. And if you don't believe, or if you're curious, I would say call the fire chief, the superintendent, or the librarian, right? and see how they've been impacted for the last 6 or 8 years, whatever it is, you know, when they stopped receiving those impact fees. And again, those impact fees, I mean, they're obviously passed on to the purchaser or whoever's going to be in that development, but that doesn't come back to you and I. But what does come back to you and I is when they have a shortfall because they're not receiving those impact fees, right? And then they have to increase their user fees, and user fees fall on who? Us, the user, right? So again, that's money from our pocket. So we just need to look at those. And I'm not saying that they should be re-implemented right away, because I don't think government should ever make a decision without having all of the best facts and evidence before making that decision. That's right. So, and again, so even when Johnsburg, and this is at all levels, this is not just Johnsburg, this is county, state, and federal, right? How oftentimes they pass legislation and it ends up being bad legislation because someone didn't do their due diligence before making that or passing that bill to become an act, right? The one other thing that I had, I just wrote this down because when you guys made me think of it. I think, so this is about building relationships. I think the Village of Johnsburg needs to build relationships with the community, with our youth, right? The kids in our community, right? We're all sitting in here. How many kids are in this room? How many under 18 are in this room? One. Thank you, Will. Okay. But we have one. And we have, I think it's 7 committees, right? 7 advisory committees with the Village of Johnsburg to advise our village board on to do research and send up advice. And I think it would be a great idea, and I'm not saying it's even a monthly meeting, but I think a semi-annual meeting or something like that, where we create a youth advisory board, right, to see what our kids want. Right, to give them a voice, and we're making them active participants in this process, like we're sitting here today. You know, I mean, Josh talked about the letter that everybody received with the 2024 update, right? Which again, that's a lot of good data, right? And so, but what if that letter came in the format of a forum or a town hall meeting, right? Because I believe communication, which goes back to that, right, is so important. But communication is what? It's a two-way street. And I can sit here and tell you what I think all day long, and if I'm not willing to listen to you, then that just means that I'm closed-minded and I'm not willing to believe that someone has more information than I. And I promise you, y'all have more information than I do. So, and ideas. I think that's it.
All right, so fiscal responsibility. I know as I was kind of just jotting down my notes for each bullet point and talking and thinking through this, and then having my conversations with Josh and other current trustees, one of the bigger issues that we see on the finance side of things is being able to justify some of the expenses, right? Or maybe we've approved a budget and we are way over budget, right? So those things, again, this comes into communication and being able to make sure that the community is informed on how these tax dollars are being spent, and they're confident in the way that our village is handling the tax dollars and the funds and the grants and everything that's coming in, and that not only is there transparency, but things are being done in the best interest of community members. Right? So looking at having regular financial audits and cost analysis, so ensuring financial transparency and accountability by conducting those regular audits and thoroughly analyzing costs to identify any inefficiencies within those costs. That it really, kind of my example would blend in with eliminating wasteful spending and optimizing budgets, but to go to an example that Josh brought up, spending $3,500 for that letter that went out, right? Is that the most efficient use of taxpayer dollars? Is there a better way where we can lower that list? And what other examples like that are sitting within our budget, right? What other things can we address where we can not necessarily cut corners, but where we can save some money or allocate funds to other areas, right? So again, looking at eliminating wasteful spending and optimizing budgets, being able to focus on unnecessary expenses, reallocating those funds to priority areas, for more effective budget management. Seeking grants for local projects. Since I've started the campaign, I've got a lot of information, whether it's face-to-face conversations. It's a lot from Mr. Bennett at the high school, who's from Aledo, so he sends a very small community, and he sends me they got a $3 million grant for sidewalks, right? A community smaller than ours, right? They have someone, like Josh mentioned, like with McHenry County, that is actively looking for these grants, that's looking for how we can fund local projects without going into taxpayer dollars. So being able to pursue those state and federal grants to supplement local funding, supporting community initiatives without burdening the budget, I think would be a big focus when we talk about deep diving into really our financial responsibility as a village. Improving operational efficiencies, so streamlining processes and utilizing the resources more efficiently to reduce costs and improve productivity. So now we're looking at more the inner workings of the village hall, of the staff, job descriptions, right? How are we utilizing the positions that we already have, and are we utilizing them in the most efficient way possible? And then looking at zero-based budgeting, right? So just being able to justify all the expenses from scratch each year, right? Not just accepting that, well, this has been an expense for the last 10 years, so we'll consistently, we'll always plan for this expense. And we know things change, not to beat the example to death, but just growing out of sending out a letter and utilizing open communication, right? Open communication, electronic options, and our village website and marketing forms to help with that. And then making sure that the funds are allocated based on current needs and prioritizing, and priorities, and being able to minimize waste, right? So just like anything else, fine-tuning a budget, right, is going to help us fund some of the bigger things or objectives as they come up. And that all really starts even our next finance committee meeting, right? We start diving into approving the village budget and sending it on to the board. So all of those things, like I mentioned, are not just things that we want to take on once we get elected, but those are things that we want to be able to look at even in this process, and regardless of our roles, we want to make an impact early on and carry that into hopefully a trustee role after April 1st.
All right, I want to go on record by saying I have a dream, and my dream is that nobody over 65 pays residential property taxes to the village of Johnsburg, okay? Because everything has to start with a dream, okay? But I don't think that this dream is far off, to be honest with you. We just have to work towards it. So we have about 17% of Johnsburg's population that's over 65, okay? And we all have been paying tax, right? Taxes for a very long time. And this isn't a new idea, okay? There are other communities within an hour of here who also do not charge any of their residents, right, for their residential property tax. So that's my dream, and I think we should start with the over 65. So Johnsburg collects, and again, my numbers are kind of rounded about 700,000, something like that. Right, so you take that 17%, right, and how much is that really impacting the overall budget, right? And it is our goal, right, and don't let anyone tell you that we want to take less money from you and reduce any services whatsoever, right? Because that would never, because you demand a certain level of service, whatever that might be. And it's important for you to communicate what those services are that you demand, right, so that they can be provided for to you. So I don't think that that's all that much of an ask, to be honest with you. 17% of our population, right? So, and again, for those people over 65, I'm just going to reiterate, they've been paying tax for a very long time anyway, right? So at some point, when would it be better to help supplement somebody's life? Like my parents, if my for example, my father got a couple $100 back on his tax return, right? My father's closer to 80 than he is 70. And, you know, I kind of would have thought he won the lottery for a couple $100, okay? I mean, like, that's how impactful it is, and I think oftentimes we forget about that, right? Just what, how thin of a budget that a lot of people operate from. So, I also, you know, Johnsburg has over 14, I'm gonna talk about some taxes. Johnsburg has over 14, we'll call them personal use taxes, right? So sales tax is a use tax. You have the right to go to the store and buy or not buy whatever it is you want to buy. So we pay a tax on that, right? And obviously we have real estate taxes on our home, right? And there's cannabis taxes and video game taxes and gas taxes, and those are all user fees or user taxes. And some of those might be discretionary, right? Like if I don't have an extra $20 in my pocket, maybe I'm not going to go buy this, that, or whatever it is. But we all have, I think does anyone in the room not have electricity or gas? Natural gas, okay? Right, so everybody does. And I don't know anybody in the room who would not pay their gas or electric bill unless they were in absolute dire times in risking having their gas or their natural gas or their electricity shut off. And Johnsburg has a utility tax. And I disagree with it because I believe electricity and natural gas is essential for all of us, just like food and water and shelter. So, you know, and how we ended up with this utility tax. So during the recession in the late, you know, 2008, 9, something like that. So Johnsburg needed funds, and this might have been even before any revenues from Walmart were coming in. So they created this utility tax, right? And when they created the utility tax, that board of trustees felt strongly enough to include a sunset clause, an annual sunset clause, on that utility tax, which means it would expire every year. And every year they would have to renew it until the point where they didn't need it anymore. So if we look at the budget, if we look at revenues from 2010, and we look at them today in 2025, I promise you we have more, right? I promise you the numbers say that we've recovered. So I think that the Village of Johnsburg specifically provides almost no services for our electricity and natural gas coming to our house. So why are we paying that tax? So I am against that utility tax, and I know we are, and I think that needs to go away. Whether you vote for me or I'm elected, that needs to go away. People need to speak up about that, because at some point, this was the point. The sunset clause was removed from the ordinance, and it was passed, and then it will exist in perpetuity unless somebody stops it. Right? So it is not anything for many years that has ever had to be voted on again. So, I think that so I'm talking about reducing our tax burden, and I know that we've already talked about small businesses, right? And I believe small businesses are the tapestry of any community, right? You drive through a community, and there are certain things that you recognize, and I believe those small restaurants or taverns or doctors or whatever they are, that's who's making up the community. Johnsburg's seen since 2010, we've seen about a 40% reduction of small businesses, right? Small businesses. And I don't have an answer as to why, right? I know Josh talked about red tape and why, because small businesses are going to be created by us, right? I mean, for the most part. We live here. I have a dream that I want to own a small business. So I think that we could do a better job, right, acting as a resource for people with ideas when they want to start a small business, and we want to help encourage those small businesses again, because that's what makes us unique from any other town, are our small businesses. I just wanted to piggyback on the zero-based budget. So some people are like, well, you don't want people over 65 to have to pay their Johnsburg residential property taxes, and you think we should do away with the utility tax. Well, how are you not going to have to cut services? So what I say, by not cutting services, is we need to adopt this zero-based budgeting, right? Every single expense, every invoice that gets submitted for payment will have an explanation on why that was necessary, right? And it will lend a critical eye, and it will make us more efficient, and it will make us more effective. Because we'll find those places. And again, it goes back to the previous with those partnerships. I think we could save money there. Again, I am not encouraging the stoppage of any service, whatever it is that you deem you need. But I think that, I could say that we could hire a consultant and do a forensic audit of the village, right? The village does an audit every year, right? And the village will say passes that, right? And they get a letter of compliance, but that's not a critical eye. A forensic audit or a forensic accountant is going to take the critical eye and ask why you're spending these monies there, right? Which is kind of our responsibility as the elected officials, but it's also your responsibility, right, as the people of Johnsburg to understand where they're spending your money. And through the zero-based budget, it gives you a better idea on why they needed that, whatever that is, right? That's it. I think I had another thing, but I'm going to pass it.
Thanks for clarifying the natural gas thing too. That's good that no one, that you clarified natural gas there when asking for everyone's opinion on that. We want to get personal, just not that personal. So looking into recreational opportunities. So again, and I'll keep revisiting, right, when we talk about communication and transparency, I do put out weekly videos every Sunday, just so people can get to know me a little bit better, my stance on these 10 points of emphasis. And last Sunday, I dove a little bit deeper into to this particular topic. So I apologize if anything is repeated. But one of the big things that I talked about, and there was some dialogue and some back and forth, was the potential of bringing a recplex or something similar to that to Johnsburg. And many of my weekend hours are spent. My daughter does travel volleyball, so I'm very fortunate to be able to go every weekend, 2-day tournaments, and travel across the state of Illinois. It sounds like sarcasm, but I love watching it and watch these events. So one of the places that we are frequently, that tournaments are frequently held at is the Recplex out of Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. And one of the big advantages outside watching my daughter compete is I get to look at these and see that these towns are driving, right? The amount of traffic that these towns are driving because of places like that, right? Central places where people from out of town are coming in, and they have, so it's not just advantages for visitors, right? But they also have, they have a pool, they have aquatics programs, they have a splash pad, they have a small water park, an indoor track, several basketball, volleyball courts, right? A lot of space within this Recplex that, again, it's not only an asset to visitors and people coming in and competitors, but also locally, right? They have a workout area, weight room, Pilates classes, all those things that you see very similar to McHenry Recplex, but on a larger scale, right? So something like this and I use the example of the school's farm property, right, and having the ability to annex that into Johnsburg, working with the school district to have an aquatics instructor, and make it something that not only we can use at the school level, but the community level, and then again, we're driving people into Johnsburg. And the best thing about those people coming into Johnsburg, right, for a 2-day tournament, maybe they stay at the waterfront, they eat dinner at they eat dinner or do bowling at Raymond's or Palace or dinner at Granny's, right? So it's driving all this business into Johnsburg. And honestly, the best part about it is, and those people all leave, right? So they come in, right? They enjoy what Johnsburg has to offer, and then they're on their way out, right? We get those sales tax dollars, and they're on their way out, right? But making it a focal point, right? Something that brings people into Johnsburg and makes it a focal point of not only our community, but now you have the draw of McHenry, of surrounding areas, right? We can go through and list everywhere. But those tournaments also bring families in from Milwaukee, as far north as Green Bay, as far south you have Rockford, you have St. Louis teams, right? So it drives a lot of people, a lot of unique business to our area, and at the end of the day, the goal there is to help support our small businesses, but also act as a fun place for our community members to grow and experience something, right? And that really kind of goes into the youth and senior engagement programs, right? So, creating programs specifically designed to engage both youth and seniors, promoting active participation in community activities, right? So I do think that we have things like celebration in the park, right? We have the Easter egg hunt, and we have those events, and this would just be another platform for us to really increase the amount of events that we do have. And I also think it'll help us, right, transition to the next one, supporting local sports leagues and cultural events. Not everything, right? When we look at, with my involvement at the high school, we look at a lot of the drive in this sense of outside organizations coming in. It's band competitions, dance competitions, the cheer competitions, hosting IHSA regionals or sectionals for wrestling, for basketball, right? It's all these things that can, again, be exploited even more in something that is now developed or maintained by the village, right? And it just goes to supporting our youth and even like the senior engagement programs, swim classes, Pilates, things like that. And then also creating family-friendly activities and events, right? So developing more events and activities that cater to families and they offer fun and exclusive options for all ages. I think if you had to break down my alcohol consumption, it's probably a beer a month, right? Maybe two. So a total of, we'll just call it on the high end, 20 alcoholic beverages a year, right? So I'm not driven to events because they offer the option to drink or I like going to events because my kids can have a positive experience. I think whenever you add something like alcohol in, we're adults, right? So we have the ability to do that. I think it becomes sometimes going to become a system for disaster or confrontation or injuries or anything like that. So I try to avoid those things at all costs. So when we say family-friendly activities, where the village does put those on, I don't think that they always have to be centered around alcohol or beer trucks or anything. Beer, I don't think it's beer trucks, right? Beer. Yeah, trucks, beer wagon. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but either way, I do. This is where you're really tunnel vision, right? I want to have things that we can engage in kids and families and community sense. And I think that the development of, again, something like the Recplex, expanding on parks and trails, right, where you can walk throughout Johnsburg, you can have something that you can get outdoors and enjoy life without leaving the community, right? And when Josh talks about, business growth and developing small businesses, it's very similar. We don't want people to leave Johnsburg to go eat lunch, right, or to go out to a family dinner, right? We want to keep that in-house as much as possible. So I think developing things like this will just help kind of define that point and really drive that.
All right, number 9. I want to get to questions, so I'll keep this one brief. I covered a number of the things in the business slide, but for residential growth, essentially what it is, and again, anybody that's been here a long time knows that this village was kind of centered around 1-acre lots with large houses, and a lot of the developments that are still out there but not filled a lot of them have these large lots with no house on them at this point, but that's kind of what all of our planning that you'll see on the website is geared towards now, and we have to evolve our expectations about what is acceptable within Johnsburg. not everybody wants that anymore, especially we have an aging population in town, and that's something that they really want to get away from. But at the same time, they don't have anywhere that they can really go to. So we need to need to add more options for these people that want to stay in town, don't want to have to go to Huntley, like my parents are here now, and they moved from Johnsburg to Huntley because they didn't have the opportunity to have that type of housing within the town that they lived in my entire life. So we talked about zoning and permitting, and again, it's the same thing here. We don't want to make it overly burdensome. We need to make sure it's easy to understand so people know what they need to do if they're going to be doing anything to their homes or businesses. In terms of diverse options, I went to a symposium this week at Carthage, my college that I went to, and it was very interesting. It was a symposium about housing availability and how, again, how changing demographics, how changing costs, and all of these things are coming together to make it very difficult to develop new housing that's affordable for people at all ends of the spectrum, right? And there's really not much building going on right now for the lower income, and there's really not much building, there's not much building going on for middle income people right now. It's mostly geared towards lower income and higher income people. So that, while we need all of it, we need to, again, identify these places in town that we want to see these things go into. We need to expand our minds to include both single-family properties and multifamily, which we really do not have, other than a few newer developments, but other than that, there's really not even much in terms of converted homes or anything like that. So we need to change our mindset to be able to look at these things and say, yes, this will provide the Village of Johnsburg a benefit. In terms of infrastructure, again, it's a slow process. It's very expensive. It's getting more and more expensive every year. So we need to continue to seek grants and funding. We've done a pretty good job of that, but it's slow, and we need to, in addition to doing that, we need to look for opportunistic infrastructure improvements that will then allow new developments to look at us, because these infrastructure things are in place, versus if they're coming to us like the Redwood community that was proposed behind the Village Hall and Vales there. They were interested in us, but the infrastructure was not in place for them to be able to develop that property at the time, and they really ended up not being willing to wait, is what happened. So it's difficult, right? It's very expensive, but we need to have a plan in place to identify what we want to go where, and we need to put the infrastructure in place to make that happen. Speaking of the plans, I mean, our maps, a lot of our comprehensive and land use maps are from 2004, right? Again, very, very different time in this macroeconomic climate. People don't want the same things that they wanted. That's 21 years ago. That map can drink. So that's far too long for a document to be what's supposed to be a living document to be still. And there's been updates and information, new information has come out, but in terms of an overall comprehensive plan, it is still the same one that we show, and this is what we showed to developers, that it was back before the Great Recession. And then again, one thing that I think we should create, similar to with businesses, is developers' books, so that we can showcase what we have. We say, these are the areas that we have, these are the opportunities that we see going there. We present this to you, but you need to come back to us with your comments and other suggestions, and we need to be open to being able to hear that. So the summary of residential growth is that our plan is to develop long-term planning tools that will lead us towards success, right? We still want to see growth. We want to see it at a rate that we feel is sustainable. I don't think anybody here wants to see Johnsburg become Crystal Lake. However, we still want to see growth in these areas that we feel will be beneficial. And without proper planning, the developments become just a hodgepodge mix of different properties going next to each other that don't coexist well. And we end up with these unintended consequences. And once they're there, there's really no going back. So again, we just need to have the forethought to decide what we want to do, but update it consistently at consistent intervals to make sure that what we are planning is what it matches reality.
And number 10, we'll go quickly. Number 10 is public safety, which obviously is near and dear to my heart. When I was in high school, I was actually a police explorer, right? So like it's much longer than my professional career of 30 years. You could tack on a bunch of years there too. It was always, again, very near and dear. So when I was hired here in Johnsburg, a little bit of a story. When I was hired here in Johnsburg, it was 1995, and after a short period of time, I became the school resource officer. And the school resource, and the thing about the middle 90s, there was a lot of grant money coming out of the federal government for community-oriented policing, right? So my brain is community-oriented policing, and it's all about how my relationship with you, right, is making us safer, and it's giving us a better, more healthy community, right? So, and then like everything with the government, things change, right? There's a pendulum that swings back and forth. And I think that all of the time that I spent in Johnsburg, and let me say one thing. So we have a police commission who actually interviews and tests the applicants to become police officer here in Johnsburg. And I think these three guys are amazing, to be honest with you. And I think even the ones before these three guys were amazing because they had this community-oriented policing in their mind, right? So they're looking for these young men and women, right, who want to be part of our community. And again, even as of 2 years ago, when I would still go out on patrol, nothing brought me more happiness to see than you going to get the mail or you cutting your grass and I stop by and we have a conversation because you know my name and I know your name, right? And because that's what makes our community safe. So Johnsburg's got, just another little bit of fact, Johnsburg's got like, what went around it, 70 miles of road. You know what it is from Johnsburg to the city of Chicago, right? Or downtown, all right? I think it's more than 70 miles. So you have 2 police officers at any time that are patrolling the 70 miles of Johnsburg streets. So between Johnsburg and the downtown Chicago, there's two Johnsburg police officers out there, right? So if we don't all take responsibility for our community, it really is all of our responsibility, right? We have the police officer that's out there that's willing when we call, just like the firemen or the rescue, right? They're willing to respond when they're called, and they're willing to be that tool in our toolbox if we need help. But it still falls back to us, right? It falls back to us. Which leads me to another story about carts and UTVs. I think that group did a pretty good job many years ago about self-policing themselves, right? Because, we had a couple tumultuous board meetings about whether we should get rid of them or keep them. And that cart community, I give them credit because they really did step up and started to hold their members and their other cart owners accountable. So I just wanted to say that. But that's community-oriented policing, right? Working with the government, working with the police to identify a problem and then taking some responsibility for it. Now, I don't want you driving around with a gun looking for a burglar, okay? Like, call the police in that case, okay? Call 911, please. All right. So the point of this is to monitor staffing of our police officers. It's not just a matter of monitoring our staff and whether we need to increase staff or decrease staff. It's about picking the right people to do that job, right? Someone that we all are willing to call and say, come over for Thanksgiving dinner. Someone that you would invite into your house. Those are the people that we want to be the police officers in our town. So that, to me, is one of the most important aspects of public safety here in Johnsburg, right? Is making sure we're picking the right people. And again, like any family, because we're going to become family, right? And Thanksgiving and Christmas, we're not going to agree all the time. I just want you to know. Or ever. Okay. I was not hoping for that, but yes. I think that, so there's a couple issues, again, I got a couple questions on my opinion about immigration, right? Illegal immigration, undocumented immigrants, and I think that, Illinois several years ago passed the Trust Act, right? In and of itself, I think it's a good idea. Okay. The problem is that it holds officers accountable if they cooperate with federal authorities, even on felonious acts that they might commit. And let me say, I have several immigrant friends, okay, who are here legally, who came through a port of entry, right? They didn't cross in an area where they weren't supposed to. They were vetted, they were background, they were detained for 30-ish days, right, to make sure that the countries that they were coming from were not criminal. And I adore these friends, right? But even they have an issue with people that are not coming through the port of entries, who are sneaking in, right, that are undocumented. And we know, I promise you, we know that there are gangs from central Venezuela, right? And they're here in the United States of America. So here in Illinois, and I know we all think like this isn't going to, maybe this doesn't affect us here in Johnsburg, but I promise you that it does. It does occur in our county. It does occur in our area. And it's just something that again, our police need to be cognizant of. I don't believe that a Johnsburg police officer should be sworn to enforce immigration laws, right? We have enough to deal with here in Johnsburg, okay? That's not our responsibility. But I do think that there needs to be communication if the officer needs to communicate, right, out. And right now, under the Trust Act, that's prevented. I think that needs to be fixed. That's my opinion on that. I said before, I was a school resource officer, right? And that was one of the most fun times of being a police officer here in Johnsburg, right? I was in the high school with those kids, and I was located in the CAC, right? The career CRC, Career Resource Center, and I worked with kids if they were having trouble. I was more like a counselor or a resource for the kids. I wasn't there chasing them around looking for cigarettes or drugs or anything like that. And that's part of the community-oriented policing, right? And so my vision, if we are to have a school resource officer, would be to be a resource not just for the kids, but also for the staff and the faculty. So, and I know some communities use the police as security guards to man a door or and that's just not my vision. I don't think that's relationship building. And I think officers need to be relationship building. Okay, I think I'm done with that.
With that, let's open up for some questions and answers. If you want, raise your hand if you have any questions or answer. And let's start in the back.
My name's Al Roble. I live on Sunnyside Beach. I have a question about, and it seems like kind of an oxymoron. JD, you were talking about recreational opportunities, golf carts, so forth and so on. And you said golf carts. Then you mentioned pub crawls, and they, in the same conversation, you were saying, well, we shouldn't be drinking and driving.
Yeah. So, and to that reference.
All right, there was a question about cart pub crawls.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, so my reference there was going off of, and if I could just go back to that slide really quick so I could look, was referencing collaborating with law enforcement for compliance. So I agree with you. We should not be drinking and driving. And there's one specific event right in Johnsburg where it is. It's a fundraising event and it is a pub crawl. So I think, and from my conversations, is that has been communicated to almost look the other way, right, on something like that. And that's where I think we need to draw the line. You should not have open alcohol. You should not be able to drive and operate golf carts under the influence of alcohol, very similar to your vehicles, right? So that was, I apologize if I wasn't clear on that reference. So I don't think that is okay.
As far as I'm concerned, any law that applies to a vehicle operator should apply to someone who's operating a golf cart.
Yes, sir. Yes, and I would agree 100% with that. 100%.
Just to add to that a little bit, those laws are currently in place, right? They're there. We have, you can look at our ordinances and they're there. So we just need to enforce our ordinances. We don't want to add any additional laws. I know that comment has been brought up before. That's not our intention. Just like it's not our intention to take away anybody's golf cart or UTV. It's a wonderful thing that Johnsburg offers, but we just need to do it safely. That's what it boils down to. So we don't need to add laws, but we do need to abide by the laws that we already have.
Thank you.
Also, one thing, if I'm looking at my phone, it's because I'm looking at online questions, so I'm not, please don't take offense to that if that's what I'm doing. I just wanted to let you know. Yes, ma'am.
I live on Hamlin in Claremont Hill, and we have a vacant lot next to my home that the ATVs, golf carts, etc., use very, very frequently. My question for you is, that is a very wooded lot, and I have called several times because trees have fallen onto our property that we've had to pay. Supposedly, it's not Johnsburg's lot to maintain, but yet, all the Johnsburg golf carts, etc., shine their lights in our bedroom window in, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So if they're allowing these carts to come through there, then why won't they maintain that lot?
So, let's repeat the question to those online. So you're asking, what would they do in
What
regards?
determines which properties these carts can go through, which they can't? And if they're allowed to go through there, then they should be maintained by the village.
Perfect. That works.
Okay, so, yes, so I'm gonna make an assumption that that's private property that they're traveling on. I mean, I don't know who owns the lot.
Well, here's the
I-
thing, is I was told that it was owned by an association that is non-existent anymore. Correct.
Okay, well, again, so before I say too much, right, then I would need to get that information, right? Because we can go on, we can look up the PIN, we can find out who owns that property and the proper way to
I'm a
deal with it.
realtor, I've tried.
Yeah.
I can
And is
get
there a PIN?
easements, I can get easements, and I can get the lot next to it, but I cannot find out who owns that, other than it's owned by the association, which is non-existent.
What about the property taxes?
If you want afterwards, I'm a local government attorney, I'll talk to you about that. That could be a civil thing for you. I had no problem talking about that.
Okay. We don't have, my point is that you're gonna allow the carts to come through there, that the village should be willing to maintain and remove trees that fall on private
Right,
property.
well, and again, this goes back to our comprehensive conceptual plan, right, for the cart communities, right? Like, we just need to secure those right of ways if we're gonna let, if we want to allow them. If you go onto the village website, there's a cart map, right? The cart map is in red on the roads that you're able to, I think it's still red. And you can drive on those roads. I promise you that cut through, whatever you're talking about, is not gonna be in there.
Well, it was originally zoned for a road, that the road never went through.
I'm still telling you, it's not gonna be red. Because if it's not under village control, they don't have the right to turn it red on that map.
So then who, okay.
I can look at the property with you. We talked, if it's unincorporated, there might be somebody in this room we can talk to actually.
And you have authorized paths and you have unauthorized paths, right? You have,
Unauthorized
yeah,
ones.
so again, that's something, and again, I own a number of properties in the village. So I am a very big believer in the rights of property owners, right? And this has come across us a few times in that these paths are being used as though they are approved, even though they aren't. So that is something that I would really like to address more directly, is to make sure that we are keeping in mind and enforcing the rights of these people that own these properties. If they don't want carts there, then they can't go there. It's gotta be that simple. So, it's not a free-for-all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind them using it, but if they're gonna use it, then maintain it. We mow it, we don't have any benefit of it.
And just, I mean, again, without knowing ownership and all that, but generally, again, that's the place of the agreement that is put in place with the property owners, is that they are giving permission for it to be used, but that doesn't necessarily, it doesn't become a property of the village. So, again, there's just gotta be an agreement there, in some way, between those two parties. So, if it's an unauthorized path, the village doesn't automatically get, rights over that property.
Then how do you stop it?
You,
Just out there, you
Enforcement
know?
of property owners' rights is what it generally boils down to.
I believe you were next.
Okay. And I've said this before at board meetings, I object to our tax dollars being spent for anything related to golf carts or UTVs that's only available to 600 people. It's not like parks or whatever. Now, Keith or I think said, you know, or you said, we hope to get them to be self-sufficient. And that's not what government is about in my pay to play. Perhaps they need to be their own like snowmobile clubs. And additionally, the village has already put in money, they put that path through, the community club. And they drive on roads that are illegal. They come across the bridge, they go down Fairview, they go down Church Street, all hours of the day and night, and cut up to halftime. And I don't know how they get up by you.
Oh, there's a way.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not- I've never taken the path, but there's been people. It's not. And I think if I recall it, it ends up close to Sunnyside.
Golf carts, I think, were a really nice idea, like ride around your little neighborhood, you know, people on the other side of the bridge should stay down in their little area.
So are you asking about more of the enforcement end, or how are you gonna guarantee that, or how are you gonna work to ensure routes are more enforced? Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Well, I
And I-
think originally, wasn't it the roads, that was it, you know, you could use village roads, that was a plus. Now it's expanded to where we are spending our tax dollars, and there's 600 golf carts.
Okay.
And, you know, I guess I'm a burger, I can't afford one, and if you have one, that's wonderful.
I just want to comment on her questions, is that it's created an us and them kind of atmosphere in this town. It really has.
That's a good
And it's made people against other people, and it's all over on Facebook, the way people act. I mean, they have their little private groups, nobody can join,
You can't get elected unless you love golf carts.
and another thing too,
That's something that we do.
why aren't the expenses divided up on the financial statements? They lump them right into a category, what, road improvements or something? So nobody knows what they're spending on golf cart pass or anything. So,
So the question and conversation for those online is commentary in regards to the golf carts, and how is it more transparent in regards to how the taxpayer money is funded on those roadways?
right.
So I would agree, I think breaking that down to line items of how that's, of how those expenses are happening, so it's not only, if you look at village tax dollars, it's not only maintaining and developing these routes, but it's also how much time is how much time is Randy spending going around approving these golf carts and right, so I think,
Public Works.
right, so I think breaking that down to line items and then taking that numbers, when we talk about creating either a 5-year budget or a self-sustaining program, that has to reflect in those registration numbers, right? And registration for golf or UTVs right now is relatively low, right? I think I just did it, it's to renew, it's $25, right, $25, and across 600 users, you probably make the argument that is not enough to maintain on an annual
Yeah,
basis.
the
So,
original one was what, $75, but after that, they're not making much money.
right, exactly, so,
So, but we don't know
Right.
what's being spent.
so I'd agree, so that's kind of where we talk about, yes, so that's where we talk about creating that, what's that 5-year budget look like? If we do want to expand these paths and we want to work with landowners, we want to have these agreements, it's not just simply as, yeah, you have the green light to drive on our property, it's, okay, well, now the village has to maintain within that agreement that, not necessarily that whole property, right, but at least that path. What's the cost of maintaining that, right? And how is that then worked into the overall budget for these? And then at the end of the day, it's those registration costs. And then if we are enforcing things, right, like it or not, ticketing is a real thing, right? And developing that money that comes from the enforcement, like that goes into that pool as well, right? So, all things I don't think we could agree on anymore with, that we need to fine tune that pool.
I just want to say what that is. So in the beginning, when we first started, right, and I think the registration fee was much higher than it is today, and then that created kind of a large pool, right, of money, and we did utilize that pool of money in the beginning to purchase the signs, the little that they're starting to age, right, the little black triangle with the yellow golf cart on it signs, so that the initial idea was to collect funds from the users, right, this goes back to my user tax, right, so the users would be the ones funding the expenses that would be incurred because of the carts, right? And I know that we created a line in the budget, right, or some, I think the village side created a line in the budget where those monies do go. And at some point, the pool was large enough that it didn't make sense to keep that user fee so high. So they did lower the user fee to bring it back down. And I do know, and again, I don't have an exact answer for you, because it's not clear as far as each of the expenditures. Like, I just don't, maybe it's clear, I just don't have that answer. I do know that the Cart community raised money several years ago, right? And then they were utilizing that money that they raised to pay for some improvements also. I can't tell you where, it wasn't a police department project, it was public, I think it was a public works project, so. I just want to let you know what I know.
Just a quick question for JD. The Recplex idea sounds, great. I mean, my kids are older now, but for the future generations, are you looking at that as publicly funded or a privately funded project?
The question is, for those online, sorry, is the Recplex idea, is JD thinking about doing it publicly or privately funded?
Yeah, so I would say that, I think we have to explore both options, but we don't want to look at raising tax dollars to do so, right? So if we were to do something like municipal bonds, as a village to raise something or get approved for something like that, we have to justify the need within the village, right? But I think that when you look at some of the development in, even in McHenry, right, a lot of that was done privately. So I think there are ways to go about it, to do both, which I don't think is a direct answer, right, to your question. But at the end of the day, I don't think that raising taxes is the right way to do it, but maybe taking on debt in the form of bonds. But that is something that you have to do a deep dive, a deep, financial dive into. What type of revenue are we going to be able to? Are we going to be able to pay back that debt? Plus the interest. What's the time frame look like? Right. So I say that knowing that is a massive project. That is something that will also take a lot of community involvement and community conversation to do. But I do think we can go either way about it. We just have to be responsible either way that we raise those funds.
I'm going to take one from online here. Why do you feel you are the best candidate for the trustee position? So I guess that's for all three of you.
Okay.
Right question.
How much time we got here? No, really, again, I have been doing this already, right? So that's obviously my advantage over these two gentlemen. But I feel that, again, I bring a background that really provides a lot for these things that we've talked about, right? I have owned my businesses for a long time, or run my businesses for a long time at least. I own a lot of property within town. I have a lot of kids. So it's all these things together that really, again, it's my experiences, it's the training, it's my willingness to question, which has been a big deal since we were in this building when the village hall was being built. I remember the very specific meetings. That was the chicken meetings. That again, I'm not going to sit up in my position that you people have elected me for and agree with everything that comes before me, because that's what I'm told to do. So that is why I made the choice to not run with the other group that is running for those three seats. I do not think that one person can tell me what is best for the village of Johnsburg without there being a healthy debate, right? And
And I see the same thing in these two gentlemen that, again, bring in very different perspectives than me. They have different groups of friends and people that have influenced them and gotten them to this point that provide really good insight into what we can do to try and improve this village. So, for me, why do I think I deserve to be a trustee? Because I want to bring in my experience. I've been here for a long time, so I have that experience as well, and I think I have more to offer because I invest in this town, and I want to continue to do so.
Yeah, so to not repeat too much that Josh said, but I really take a lot of pride in representation, right? So if I'm part of the wrestling community, right, I know that all of the actions and the things that I'm doing are being directly reflected onto the wrestling program or the football program or Big Brothers Big Sisters or like I tell my kids our last name, right? So I feel very confident that I can get into the trustee role and represent the village of Johnsburg well. Right, so not only in my actions and in conversation, but also just the general way that I carry myself and how I work to be represented, within the village. I'm passionate about things in Johnsburg, right? I want to stay here. I want to build. I want to raise my family, and I do want to see change, and I do want to see growth. And I've always taken the approach that it's not right to just complain about those things, right? To kind of sit back and be on social media or whatever it is and complain and then leave it alone, right? I want to directly affect the changes that I want to see in Johnsburg, which again, it's into our combined 10 points of emphasis here. It's everything that I've been involved in, right? We can go back and see when we talk about communication. Ms. Babe will probably agree that it's annoying how many emails I sent for wrestling. And it's right, here he is again with another one, right?
Yeah.
But I believe in anything that I'm involved with, being able to over communicate, and then building and developing those things. If you look at the Junior Skyhawk football program, and this is not solely me, right, with the growth, but it's me and part of the board, right? So being able to work with other individuals, but Junior Skyhawks, wrestling, we went from 3 years ago when I took over the head coaching position at Johnsburg, between Spartans, junior high, and high school, we had a total of 71 wrestlers. Right now, right, with the growth in those programs, we're up to 165 registered wrestlers between all three programs. Again, not just on me, but I will continue to brag and carry myself well and represent organizations that I'm involved in, and the village would be my next opportunity to do so.
So I think I bring a unique combination of leadership and experience and dedication, right, to the board. I think that most importantly that I believe in this community, right, and the community is made up of all of us, right, and I think and I know I've already said this, it has to be a cooperative effort. We all have ideas, and I want to be the conduit. We want to be the conduit, right, to bring those ideas to the board level. And I know that JD and has taken a little criticism for his Replex idea. Those are the ideas that we need to talk about, though, right? These are ideas. That's all they are. They're thoughts in our heads. And we all have to have the ability to know that someone's listening to our ideas. And again, we're not always going to agree. But if we don't talk about those ideas and we don't argue about those ideas, right, and not quarrel about those ideas, right, we're never going to get anything accomplished because we're never all going to agree on everything all the time. But again, I think that more than anyone, the three of us are that's what we want. We want your voices to be heard, and we want to listen to them because that's how we make progress.
Because I know we've gotten this question a few times, I want to make sure that everybody is clear that the three of us, as well as the three that are running, so there's 6 of us total running for 3 available trustee seats, right? We are all running independently. The way that this vote works on April 1st, everybody get early voting, March 17th. But no, the way that works is whoever gets the most, whoever the three are that get the most votes goes in. So we all run, we are running together because we have shared values, right? And these, again, I am so happy to have found these guys because it is amazing to find somebody that shares the same values. So what we're asking of you is when you go to vote, we are running together, though we are being elected independently. We ask you to vote us in altogether because it is the combination of all of our experiences and our willingness to see change is what we want to bring to the board, and we need to, ideally, all three of us get on board for that to really take effect. So, just as you guys, as we get closer to the election, please understand that that's what we're really, really hoping for.
I had a question earlier that I put, asked Josh and JD about, and I just want to bring it publicly because I think it's important, is, my question was who makes the rules as to how you are able to be a trustee? These three gentlemen all own homes here in this community. I can tell you for a fact that one of the others on the other side is not even a homeowner. And he does not have our best interest. He doesn't care if our property taxes go up. He doesn't care about those kinds of things. So I just want to make it clear that everybody kind of knows all that information because I think that is important.
So, I will let you guys answer, but I'm, as a local government attorney and something, this is what I do as my day job, I'll say that is statutory language set by the Illinois State Legislature, in regards to what the requirements are. There's, petition filing, things like that. So, there's some a little bit on in regards to our actual code, but I do want to say, mostly set by state statute.
Okay.
So,
You need to live within the village boundaries.
Yeah,
So it's just live, you don't have to be a
Correct, you do not have
property
to own
owner,
the property, no.
there's no.
Because again, I mean, again, you gotta consider them like renters or whatever, as long as their registered mailing address is the village of
They're just
Johnsburg
like
proper.
renters and, they don't have that vested interest that, us homeowners. I'm just throwing it out there for public opinion.
I'll answer that in a very, strictly statutory way, that's where.
No one has a comment.
Register and you have the signatures to be on the ballot, that's really the requirement.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Couple things. One, I support you guys because I really think that Johnsburg does need more open communication.
Yes.
Just like you said, it is so hard to find things on the website. I was involved a little bit in fighting at Kelly's Market and just trying to go find definitions. Yeah, something pops up, it's 30 pages long. You can't find that particular, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Same thing with the budget, you get line items. No, you don't know what's all lumped into that one thing. The other thing that really bothers me a lot about Johnsburg, and I hope it changes, and I hope you guys are more aware, maybe kind of with the golf carts in a way, is there are so many rules and regulations in Johnsburg that are not uniformly, enforced, thank you. Where I live, I'm not gonna name names or anything, I don't wanna throw anybody under the bus. There was one homeowner that got dinged and fined for something that house 3 doors down literally has the same thing. Nothing. Hate to say about the yacht club, nobody goes down to the yacht club. Go drive past the, what's it called now, the backyard bar. They got construction equipment, they got an old pier, they got a junky trailer. Nothing is done with that. Personally, I don't really care, but then don't go after the yacht club. To me, it doesn't make any sense. I would like to see things more uniformly. If you're gonna ding one car, the thing was that, well, someone complained. It's the law, it's the law. So anyway, there's that. And then the only other thing too, again, I appreciate your help with the Kelly. I think there should be more growth. We all would like more income, but it's gotta be more planned for the area. And it can't be like what you were saying, it's like, oh, well, you know, that's not gonna fit. Well, some things are gonna fit. You do have to be more open-minded about things. So, thank
You
you.
want to say anything to, some commentary in regards to,
Yeah. But yes, and essentially it was, and I think that we all three agree that yes, everything should be enforced consistently across the board. And yeah, again, there are some things going on right now that are very unfortunate, so.
you can go ahead,
Okay.
whichever one wants to go first.
Well,
Go for it.
this complements what she was just saying, so some of it may be a little bit redundant, but I also feel that transparency is a little lacking right now, especially if you go online and try to find things. If you look at the budget, a lot of things are lumped into large dollar amounts. You don't know what that covered or what the description was for. I personally was snooping to try to find out how much was spent on the lawsuit against the yacht club because of a personal interest of mine. And you can't find like what was allocated or the budget that's posted online. It's for different durations of time from every board meeting, so it's not consistent. There's no aggregate, there's no like detail where you can really get to the itemized budget. And then if you try to find the committees that are responsible for all of this, they don't all list their purpose, their mission, what they're trying to achieve, when they met last, or any of that. So there's just a lot of, like, so then you're dealing with needing to spend your time to go there in person, snoop around, ask questions, get bounced around, and not really get anywhere. So to be an informed citizen, that process is challenging. That's probably why a lot of people aren't as informed as they could be. And then it's very passively posted too. So to be a little bit more proactive in getting the information out to everybody. So that I think sometimes people are uncomfortable when there's just uncertainty and lack of awareness. It's not so much the decisions that are being made. It's just understanding why they're being made. And so to be a little bit more proactive in letting everybody know, and you are very active on Facebook and social media, but not everybody is. So how do we like balance that so that everybody feels more aware? And then you'll get more support from everybody, or people will know when to speak up or not to speak up. Right now, I think there's just a lot of lack of awareness.
Well, it's also being selective with the information that is being shared, right? So it might be very easy to find some things, and some things that aren't as easy to find, that could be intentional.
Right.
And that's, it's unfortunate, I disagree with that, right? That's unfortunate, so, you know, being able to, you know, reflect back on live streams and revisit the live streams of certain meetings, or, you know, for Finance Committee, all our meetings are recorded, right? So to be able to find that audio and listen and look through the memo, or excuse me, not the memo, but the, look through the meeting minutes, right? And having that be accessible, I know is something that Josh spoke to as well in one of his points. And it's something we all agree with you on, right? That we need to share all information, not just some information.
Sorry, can I add one more thing? Is it the ordinance compliance? And then you're right also about it being very inconsistent. So I, again, from a personal perspective, I live at 2209 West Fairview. So I have an ordinance view of things that are not enforced on a regular basis because of some of my neighbors. And so I look at that, and that's being allowed, but then they're willing to spend all this money on the yacht club because a person internally complained, and then it got escalated. I don't have all the details, so I'm not going to speculate any more than that comment right there. But I am also curious, this was a thought I had about 30 minutes ago, and I zipped it so I could listen. If there's people in positions within the village of Johnsburg that we don't vote on, who are very influential on how money is being spent in the town, how do we address that? Who do we voice our opinion to?
Are you talking?
So the buck stops here is actually with the village board. So if the village president appoints department heads, right? And then there's staff below each of those department heads. So, but the village board The village board has the responsibility every year, finance reviews a budget, and then it goes to the village board, right? And so, whereas Josh spoke earlier, right, about like taking a new look at how things are being done, right? And taking maybe a little more critical eye, which is why I love that zero-based budget. Because then there's a justification for everything. And going back to transparency, I just wanted to say this. So being somebody that's worked for the government since the inception of FOIA, what I will tell you is that with a careful analysis of the documents that are being FOIA'd, we could do so much better job at getting those documents online, right? I mean, there's always going to be some documents that don't end up online, right? But because we're not providing those publicly, right? I mean, we are through a FOIA, but we're not providing them through an easy source, right? If you want to take a look, how does that make you feel? That makes you feel suspicious, right? Like the difference between having a budget versus the actual budget versus the detailed actual budget, right? Detailed, that's a word that shows you the detail in the budget, and that's going to tell you where those monies are going. It's the same, goes back to the carts, right? Like you don't know how they're spending, our monies. Are they spending our tax dollars to make those improvements or maintain that program, or are they using the user fees only? But if you understood the details of that line item, then you wouldn't even have a question anymore, would you? But again, we receive FOIAs all the time. Johnsburg, we receive FOIAs all the time at the county, constant, dozens a day, I would say. So again, some of them we can't put online, right? But we can release redacted versions. So I do think that we could do a better job putting things online, but I think we've talked about that already.
Okay. Sir?
All right, so you guys are elected, which I'm gonna vote for you guys. You guys got my vote. Is this just a stepping stone? Does one of you guys want to become president?
Let me say this, I'll be happy to still be here in 4 years if I get elected. So that might be too far.
I can answer that question definitively. No, I do not have any intention to go any higher in the village of Johnsburg than this position. So I appreciate, right? I appreciate that it's possible, and I've heard from many people that I should, but that's just not, I don't feel that that's necessarily my strength. However, like JD said earlier, I want to have a voice, right? And this is how I felt that I could have a voice. And that's why I want to run again. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't sure coming into this election whether I was going to do it. But at the same time, I can't sit back and watch. So that's why I'm doing this. But that's not my path.
Yeah, I would like, I do eventually. I would love to run for that position, but I think first and foremost, and the reason that I didn't, and that was through good conversations with these two, is that the reason I didn't this time is I feel like I have to prove myself, right? I have to prove myself as a trustee, as a representative, of the community first, and then, down the road, hopefully I earn that, and just like Josh, I think if Josh said he was ever interested in running, there'd probably be a big cheer for him, right? Because he's continued to prove himself extremely well, so I'd hope that, first and foremost, have to get elected into the trustee role. So far we have one guaranteed vote on my wife. So 2. But hopefully we get into that position and prove myself over 4 years, and then that would be a goal of mine down the road.
Let's go in the back, then we'll come up to you.
All right, so I was at a village board meeting recently where one of the persons sitting on the elected board said out loud at the meeting, it is not my responsibility as an elected official to represent the voice of the people. It is my responsibility to listen and do what legal counsel and the village administrator tell me. That is almost a direct quote, okay? And I was outraged. But then when you go back and you read the minutes of the meeting, that was conveniently not captured. So my question to you is, first of all, I love that you want to live stream meetings so people can actually see what's being said and what's being talked about. But my question for you is, what happens if your opinion is different than the opinion or the voice of the people? And how do you make sure that you actually are serving in a way where you're representative of the people that elected you and not ultimately after a couple years doing it for your own selfish reasons and purposes?
Good question. Good question.
Apparently, an elected official at a meeting made some commentary in regards to who do they listen to, the people or the appointed officials of the. So how are you three going to ensure that the voice of the people are heard, the voice of the people being heard and not the appointed? And I'm in a very precarious situation. I am one of the actual government employees that do this every day. So how do you make sure the bureaucrats don't take over and the voice of the people are heard?
So again, obviously being in this position, I remember that meeting vividly. It is recorded. So everybody is welcome to find that. However, again, also being in this position gives me the advantage that you guys can go back and watch any of the recordings and see how I've made comments. I have, especially in the last, I would say 3 years, been the very small minority that will argue with a lot of the points that come across. Even if I agree with the overall idea that's being proposed, I just want to make sure that I, A, understand, and B, am representing the people that have elected me and what they want, right? So I am not afraid to speak my mind during village board meetings, and I'm not afraid to look like an idiot either, right? I'll ask questions that I don't know the answer, but that's my job. So I have the advantage of you guys being able to check my record, but yeah, it has become an issue, and I hope to see that change.
Yeah, I can really just reflect back. I mean, even looking at the Kelly's Market, right? And we went to where Josh and Greg, right, hosted up at the township there. There was a lot of emotion, right, from community members that went up there and had the conversations, and rightfully so, right? And when that was then brought to the village in that final meeting, there was pieces of that emotion there, but there were also a lot of facts, right? And there were a lot of great questions asked. Josh asked a lot of great questions. I don't think that the attorney for Kelly's Market represented well whatsoever, and I think that actually showed a lot of holes in their plan as well. But that's a part of it. It's having those conversations. It's taking the emotional piece from the community combined with the actual facts and what, you know, in that example, what traffic flow looks like, and then making a decision, right? That's making a decision that's in as much as you can the best interest of the whole. But like Josh said, where we do agree on our 10 points of emphasis, but we might not necessarily agree on everything across the board all the time, right? And that's the value of a board that isn't just that isn't just
Yes, man.
yeah, okay. I'm trying to find a better way to say that, but exactly that. Normally, Sarah's so reserved too. Yeah. Oh, it's Laura. Oh, sorry. Oh, I put Sarah on both Sarah. So, thanks, Laura. But yeah, that's the value of it, right? And I spoke a little bit to the junior Scott. There's been things that I've brought up and they've been turned down, and you know, maybe it just wasn't the best idea, right? But being open to have those conversations and not being bitter about you know, things not moving forward in your direction one way or the other, I think is what brings value to that position, right? But also it's the ability to, like they hosted that meeting, open it up to the community, to the village, right? Have those conversations. Though too often a lot of these decisions are being made in-house and not even considering all of our trustees in these decisions, right? So I know that Josh's work and Josh's communication there with other trustees was vital to, you know, to that overall 4-2 vote, which was the initial vote against it. So, but again, I think to kind of summarize, it's listening to the village, or listening to the community members, being able to have conversations as a board, looking at the facts, and then, moving forward with what's in the best interest of the community as a whole.
So I guess I feel like all I have to say is, by the people, for the people. I mean, I don't think there's much other than that, right? Like, because you know how much I value our community, and our community is different than that community, whatever that is, or their community, right? So, again, we all need to be heard. And again, coming from the legal, right, I want to throw a little side note, right, as long as it doesn't violate the Constitution or law. But again, I don't think that the board is presented with making decisions, right, that are going to violate law. So, again, by the people, for the people. That's why I want to be here.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's me asking an idiot question. But trust me, I've tried to research this like freaking crazy. We already know that the president, who it's going to be, right? You do not have to check that box just because he is the only name there. You actually can make a little box underneath it. Again, I'm going to more direct this toward you because you would probably be the one to know this. But I have tried to research it. Nothing that I found said that you have to check that box just because he's the only person there. You could actually make a box underneath it and you could write in there, anybody but Hutterman. It needs to be put out there that your boy, because he could, I'm sorry, with everything else that has happened, Lord only knows what happens when you turn that ballot over, right? So, if you make your own little box underneath it and you put anybody but Hutterman, he needs to be humbled. And let him know that everybody, we all speak on the same voice. We don't like the way that you're conducting business here. Am I wrong?
Though I'm a part attorney, I'm not your attorney, and do not take what I'm saying as constitutional legal advice, and I'm listening to that for malpractice reasons. You do not have a legal requirement to fill in an oval on your ballot. That is correct. However, a write-in, to the best of my knowledge, and you guys can tell me, I do not believe there was any candidates that indicated that there was going to be a write-in, so there will not be a box. The possibility of creating a box may invalidate your ballot. So just
All right, don't
so
do
leaving
that.
it blank may be your again. This is just do what you wish. I'm not giving you legal advice, but that would be my comment.
I'm telling you, I've gone all the way to the state level to try to find any information on that, and there's nothing out there.
And I apologize, though I do election law, I don't have it off the top of my head. I believe the time period in which write-in candidates could be placed on the ballot is past.
It's what already.
You do need to file.
We tried.
Yeah.
And we did
Jason.
do that, just to have the information, but yes, you do need to file to be able to be a write-in candidate.
He hasn't spoke yet, I'm gonna let him, and then I'll go to you.
So quick question, we've been at a couple of village board meetings, a lot of us are here to tears, due to whatever.
No, we all know it's not contested.
Is there a way to get microphones at your podiums or what's the desk or whatever, so we can hear you better, because there's a lot of conversation going on between a couple of the trustees, and we couldn't hear what was going on at that point in time.
So there are microphones. The question was, can we do something to help anybody that's hearing impaired just hear what's going on in the room at a board meeting? There are microphones there because they do pick up the audio for the recordings, right? There's just no speakers. So, yes, is that possible? Sure. I mean, again, it's just all.
I couldn't hear anything.
To the board and say we want this implemented?
I mean, yes, that would certainly, again, anything, you guys are residents, you are welcome to come and speak to the board every single meeting if you so choose. That is your right as a resident of the village of Johnsburg, and people, you don't even have to be a resident necessarily.
Does the board does the village hall currently allow ADA accessibility? I know a lot of municipalities will provide like a set of headphones that tie into that. Is that something you guys do right now?
No. I let them know that I'm hearing impaired. I let them know that first meeting when I talked off the hip that I'm hearing impaired.
Did they give you an accommodation?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so again, is it possible? Yes. Is it really that Will it be expensive? No, not really. I mean, I would imagine it's not overly burdensome. So yeah, I mean, come to the board and make a suggestion. And again, those are the things that's the feedback that the board needs to hear. So, but they need to be willing to hear it at the same time. So yes, I encourage you, if you have a question or concern like that regarding the board, come to a meeting, but yes, we want to hear feedback.
I know we're over that you guys.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, again, we're 15 minutes over already, so we're more than happy to stay and keep answering questions if you guys are willing to sit with us. But, we'll keep going, Right, you guys are good?
Sir?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I have to give you guys a hell of a lot of credit. I've lived in Johnsburg since 1958. It was a good old boys club then, and it still is.
Jay? I'd like to thank the three of you. Being a resident here for 45 years, I do think this is the first time that we've had potential future employees submitting their resume to their future employers, us, the taxpayers, and elegantly lay out what your vision is for Johnsburg, previous, current, and future. I don't think any candidate in the last 40 years, as Mr. Rubel so elegantly put it, as the good old boys, have done such a qualified job as you guys have, and I hope and I look forward to you guys working for me, being my new employees, even though I'm an employee of you.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, another question back there?
Here, can we go to somebody who hasn't spoke yet, and then we'll go back to you?
Sure. Hi, so we recently moved to Johnsburg. Me and my husband did, and for a new resident of Johnsburg, we've been trying to get involved with the community, because we're very community-oriented people, being veterans, being first-time homeowners and everything, so we're trying to really integrate ourselves in the community, but we find it really hard to find accessibility to participate in community programs and stuff like that. So is there any way for you guys, especially for new residents, to, in your new website and everything, to have an option for volunteer opportunities for us? Because we do really want to be integrated in the community.
That's wonderful.
I think she projected well.
Yeah, I probably heard you, but yeah, basically it's how do we find opportunities to volunteer, right? And so the board, each of the board members, each of the trustees is put in charge of a committee. So there's 6 committees plus planning and zoning, so 7 total, right, Keith? That's there's and then there's police commission and that. But, each of those committees is made up of 6 members of the community that are approved by the board, but again, it can be anybody that typically lives within the village or at least has some major, association with something in the village, like a business owner, right? But that, I mean, to speak with and influence the village decisions for somebody that's not elected would be the best thing that you can do. I think they're generally pretty well full right now, but there's positions that become available all the time, so we just need to have you fill out an application, you submit a resume, and again, as something becomes available, then we look at the list of who we have and try and get more residents, as many residents as we can, on those committees. Because they're all advisory to the board, but they all take up different issues. So we would love to have you do that. And then more generally, right, there's just opportunities for helping out at events. We would always like to do more events. It's just getting the manpower to do them. So we're always looking for volunteers for that. And I can put you in contact. I'll give you my card at the end here. So again, if you're looking to get on our email list, that would be a good way to get to know. And then part of our big deal here is communicating this information so that more people, new residents or residents that have been here for 50 plus years that still don't know what's going on. We want to make sure everybody is working off the same information.
Or a meet and greet or something like that every quarter.
And I think kind of what Josh was getting at too, when you look bigger picture, even outside, there's so many opportunities to volunteer, right? And that we need to know, like just putting it out there, right? And again, this is something that's reactive that we'd rather be proactive with. Is those getting people involved versus waiting for people to say they want to be involved, right? Or at least giving the opportunity to do so, because you'll see that now that you put it out there publicly, you'll be planning prom in a couple of years. There you go. Yeah. So once you say yes, you put it out there publicly, there are tons of opportunities to do so. Even bigger, like when you look at JABA or the Lions Club or Men's Club or the Women's Club, which was recently started. There's so many opportunities to get involved for those who do want to get involved. But I think there has to be a central location for that option, especially for new residents that might not be ingrained into a school district yet, or a program, an athletics program, something like that. So awesome suggestion, but let's be ready.
Thank you for being a volunteer.
What can we do to help you guys in the next month? What do you need from those of us that obviously are here and supporting you to get you guys in? Do you need door-to-door knocking? Do you need things to be distributed? What can we do to help?
I think exactly what you said. Josh uses the term our shareholders, right? So we've had some help in stakeholders. So our stakeholders, but like obviously Eric, right, helped go around and put signs up. But having that group that we can communicate and get out to and be able to go door knock and be those advocates in the community for us is definitely a plan that we need to put together, and we need to gauge the interest for that. And like anything social media related, right? It's as simple as a share, right? A share, a comment, and just to kind of distribute it out there, not only to the people who like and follow our things, but also then your friends, family within the village of Johnsburg that could also impact that, right? So that's small scale. On a larger scale, I think we need to, per your comment, we need to gauge interest, have a meeting, and then and come with an action plan, in the short time period.
Hey, Dee, can I say something? So, last election, I think about 800 people voted, okay? Even though we have almost 8,000 residents or whatever. Anyways, if you guys could all talk to 20 people and get 20 people to go out and vote, especially people that maybe wouldn't otherwise vote, I think that's really the issue that everybody's had historically, is the people don't go and vote. They don't go and vote. So
I would volunteer to drive people.
As a side note, to take off on Laura's comment, easy peasy. One, we're going to have early voting coming up here very shortly.
March 17th.
For state law, there was a card sent out a few election cycles ago and asked you for if you want forever to get a mail-in ballot. Please, it is important that you fill that out. If you don't, go to the county clerk's website. You can have that mail-in ballot. It is something that it's law now, and it's easy peasy. It comes to your door. You can sit in your lazy boy, look through and say, hey, I ain't voting for that schmuck. Fill it out, and you can mail it in. Illinois has 2 election seasons, crappy and crappy, in the winter, in the November, and in the spring. You never know that, hey, I'm going to go vote because that's what I always do, and all of a sudden something prevents you, and now that ballot don't count. You also can take that mail-in ballot if you feel like you want to go vote on voting day, surrender it, and you will be given a regular ballot. The more that we can get in by mail, the less that we have to go work and knock on doors and ask them to vote. It's an easy thing to have them mail it in. We're going to have early voting. One polling place will be the township building down the road here. The county clerk out in Woodstock, the new voter system or facility is open. You could walk in there and vote anytime you want. So it's important to get that mail-in ballot, get on the registration for it. You can do it right off your phone.
But if every person in this room gets 20 people to vote, that's the 800 right there. I mean,
So we have 17% is senior population. I am willing, and I'm serious, if you know of anyone that needs a ride, let me know, and I would be happy to take them.
So, Carl, those were the exact words I was gonna use, it's funny. So I hope everybody online caught that, but, no, to Laura's point, right, Laura is exactly right, that and that's exactly what I was going to say, is that if you want to help us, we need more votes cast, period, right? That is, we need to increase the number of votes that are cast, because generally, the municipal elections, there's not much else on the ballot. This time, there's nothing else on the ballot besides us. So it's generally been pretty low turnout. So what we need is we need to get as many people that would not otherwise normally have voted in a April municipal election to come out and vote, come out and support us. So mail-in ballots, that was another thing that we talked about that I want to make sure I do cover. If you do want to send in a mail-in ballot, you need to request it from the county. So, and you gotta get to do that pretty soon. Yeah. And then, early voting starts at the township building off of 31 on March 17th.
And any of us can go there?
Yes.
Even if it's not, okay.
Early
So everybody, you, on election day, you have your voting center, right? It changed a couple times in the last few years, so make sure that you can go online and say, where do I vote? Just type in, where do I vote in Illinois? And it'll take you to a website, you put in your address, it tells you where you go vote. But for early voting, it only takes place at the township building, but anybody can go there. Anytime between, when they're open, March 17th to election day, yes. So, yes, it's going to come down to getting the number of votes cast to increase. That's how we're going to be most successful, in my opinion, right?
Do you guys have any further, like, social media stuff that you can put out there that we can share? If everybody shares it too,
We can create, so we do have, you think we're 2.5 hours in it for yourself?
So we do have a small marketing piece that's gonna be going out, where they create 5 different banner ads, and that's put out. But we'll be able to use that, as a piece that we'll share on our Facebook page that can then be, shared out for people to view. That would reflect more, get out and vote, versus just like our general image or our name. Right?
Okay.
So, yeah, we do have, in the works or being created, should start early next week. We have those banner ads that we can, again, share to our Facebook page, and then that can be shared out by.
with voting instructions,
Yeah.
like dates and where and how and mail-in, or if you want your mail-in and you want to go in person and all that.
Yes, yeah, so it does, the mail-in instructions, I don't think are on there, but that's why we have these meetings, this dialogue, because now there will be, so.
Sorry, just really quick, I want to say this too, because we have been very active on social media, which is great. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you we don't block people. And we respond to questions, right? I mean, I think that's important, that you guys know where we stand. So that's been a very big component of our election. However, there are a lot of people that are not on social media. So that's, again, that is another way that you guys can help, is just talk. I mean, just talk to your friends, talk to people you know, and say, direct them to learn about us. And whether they end up voting for us or not, that's fine. But we feel very comfortable with our accomplishments, that we want to put it in front of as many people as possible, because we hope that as they look at us, they say, yes, these are the right people that deserve to be in those seats.
do you need a soliciting permit to go door to door for the village?
Not for elections.
Not for elections.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because if you give us stuff to put out there, then we don't want Mr.
And if you are interested in that, I have some stuff in my car. I would love it if you guys went out and put information on people's doors, because that's the thing. Yeah, that's the component that we will struggle with, because the people that are not on social media don't have as much information unless they actively seek it out, and that's always hard unless you can get information to them.
Well, Heather's the one that did the Kelly's Market one, she drove
The weather's a little nicer lately too, so that helps. We were out last weekend and it was a little chilly. So,
Just a side note, if you are gonna go door to door putting them on the doors, please put them on the doors. Do not put them on the mailbox because you'll just get those guys, heinies, in trouble.
I can tell you which mailboxes I do not like.
And they can charge you too.
I just, with respect to signs, is there an ordinance about a deadline, a sign to be, political sign to be taken down after the election is concluded?
I believe there is, I believe it's,
Nope.
I thought it was something, a week or 2 weeks, something like that. Again, I know, I don't know, I won't speak for anybody else, but I know that our plan is to get all of ours down within a couple of days. I know you guys want to keep them all, and, put them up on your walls, and remember the great times, but, yeah, our intention is to get them all.
Hey, another question. I want to go back to what Laura originally said, about the one trustee who didn't, I really think that should be disclosed on who that was.
Oh, it was
Because that person-
Mary Beth Foreman.
Okay, because essentially it's really need to know about her, okay, what was the name again?
Mary
Beth.
Mary Beth.
Okay.
And she is running.
She's the appointed one.
And she wanted Kelly's market bad.
Yes, she did.
That's because somebody told her was she running out of
Hey guys, let's bring this back. Is there any further questions for our candidates up here?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I just have a quick question about the business and development. Going back, I think it was mentioned that 40 small businesses, we've lost 40 small businesses.
40%.
Are there any ideas to go after more small business and not worry about the larger big box? Because we believe in shopping small. And right now, we go out of the community and we'll go pretty far to shop small. And I really think that to keep Johnsburg with that into the community kind of a feel, that needs to be kind of a focus. I was just wondering if there's anything that there was any plan or any kind of idea to try to keep that.
What you got?
Because I've been thinking about that too, is why can't we implement something like McHenry did with their little startup business things that the high school got involved in, and building
It's
and.
funny you say that, Cindy, because we are, in our committee, we are working on it right now, right? We're in the early stages, we're trying to figure out where it can go, how we're gonna pay for it, those kind of things. So, however, I agree that is a really, really cool way to get really small businesses, interested in becoming bigger businesses. But, yeah, so going back to the original question, how do we encourage businesses to come to us? Part of the reason that change, part of it is because we implemented a business registration fee. So I'm sure the businesses, some of them that would have registered prior because it was at no cost, suddenly don't want to pay $25. It's not like it's anything major, but that's some consideration. However, just generally, and again, this is speaking from my feelings, and I've made this clear in some board meetings that I would like to see the board be more interested in discussing with a broader range of businesses moving their operations here, right? From my observation, it seems like we solely focus on sales tax generating businesses that offer a lot of things that we already have, right? But I think that employers are just as important to bring these people into our town. And I've seen in a number of cases in the last couple of months, years, where the conversation never actually makes its way to the board. The only reason that I hear about these things is because small businesses have a very special place in my heart. I have JABA, the Johnsburg Area Business Association. I've been involved with that since probably 2016, no, like 2008, that was it. So a long time, and it was started by my wife's grandfather back in the mid-90s. So again, those people have a very special place in my heart. So I work very, very hard to try and help people that present something to the village and get shot down immediately without it going anywhere. I try to really work for them and improve the village overall is by getting these businesses to cooperate and to work with the village, to work with our residents, and it just all works together for all of these things to just build on themselves. So that's something that I will continue to push for sure.
Yes, sir.
With the sewers now on the other side of the river, and we have all that property that's vacant, and I guess the hotel is for sale, that property, do you got a vision what you would like to see, or go into all those properties over there?
You're saying your old property, the bowling alley side?
Well, the bowling alley side, but the hotel across the street.
So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of the development that is, they have a contingent offer in on the hotel property, so that's in process. I believe that's gonna come before the board here relatively soon, is what I've heard. So that is the boat storage, the car condos, and a small retail component is what is making that up, that plan. So, is that the best use of that property? You know, it's hard to say at this point. I want to see more details, like Keith talked about earlier. I don't like voting on things or even discussing things when we don't know all of the details, including the other entities that have to make decisions, such as like when Kelly's was coming through. That was part of our discussion, was that we didn't know what the other entities were doing, and yet we're being asked to vote on it in terms of IDOT and MICDOT, McHenry Department of Transportation with the roads. So is that the best use of that property? I'm not fully convinced of that quite yet, but those really, in Johnsburg, those are the only two commercial properties on the Chain of Lakes, right? It's said a lot that we have the most waterfront of any municipality on the Chain of Lakes, but we, at the same time, have probably the absolute least amount of commercial waterfront space. There's, you come down by Bald Knob, there's some space down there, but there really is not a lot of opportunity. So that's why we need to be incredibly careful when we select what is gonna go on those properties, because like I said earlier, once you put something there, it's there. So we need to make sure that we don't jump to agree to some development that's not gonna offer the benefit of us being the municipality with the most lakefront, most waterfront.
I just have a question on that, boat storage thing. Wouldn't that be kind of a similar effect as to what's going on with the yacht club? You know, you have all these boats sitting out there, and you got a neighbor that lives in a little, I don't know, I know it's a zoning issue too, but I'm just.
It is, and I'm sure a lot of you know, but I am a member, a regular member of the Biscayne Yacht Club, so I am very careful in how much I can discuss, because I have not participated in any of the votes. I participated in some of the discussion, but in a more abstract way. But again, it's typical for me too.
Well, I'm just trying to, it's.
That, it is an issue of zoning.
Okay.
I skipped this kind of one, I
Oh,
apologize.
that's okay. The one thing I was gonna say before was, with the microphones, I really think they do that on purpose. For the original zoning meeting at Kelly's, they didn't turn any of the microphones on, and they only put a few chairs out. And when I said to Vinny, can you put more chairs out? Look at, there's a lot of old people. He said, oh, this is all I can put out. And I said, Vinny, I went to the Walmart meetings. There were chairs wall to wall, and he said, and we asked to have a microphone. They said, oh, we weren't set up for it. So that to me was on purpose. Yes. As far as the waterfront, that's gonna be hard. I know a little bit about it. That has been for sale for years, and that property is a disaster. It's gonna need a whole brand new seawall, and this, again, I don't care when we're in a disclosure, we keep our vote there. This is the only solid offer that they've gotten in years. So is it the best part? No. And as for boat storage, it's not gonna be boat storage, it's gonna be car condos.
Yeah, I would encourage you to look at the plans.
Yeah.
Because again, it hasn't come before us, so all that I know is kind of what's been released publicly. Right?
Yeah.
So,
A car condo is,
like a man cave.
yeah.
Really?
Sorry to bother you.
But they also can pull their boats out and work on their boat.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing to Steve's point, because you had mentioned, and we talked about infrastructure improvements. We recently completed the project to get the sewer line run under the river, right? At the end of last year. So that is what is making those properties on that side of the river much easier to develop, because it is, and as Steve knows from Raymond's, it is incredibly difficult to put in a restaurant without having, or by using a septic system. So now, all that has happened at this point has been, the pipe is under the river, and the pump station to get the stuff back is in place. So it's not like an easy connection. However, those are areas of opportunity where a developer with enough money will now see that hurdle being cleared, and it will make both of those properties on both sides of the road more attractive for development, because that's one fewer hurdle, one fewer very expensive hurdle that they no longer have to work around.
I'm gonna piggyback off of the discussion, because I live across from that property on the river, and we started gossiping on the street about what might be going over there, and shared emails and plans and everything last year. And from my perspective, as being a resident that's gonna stare at it, I stare at what's there now, I'm gonna stare at whatever else goes over there. I see potential, and it's unused, I'm not thinking of the right term, the ramp, the boat ramp. It is in horrible condition. I mean, scary condition. I know the fire department uses it, and they allow use, like, on a per request basis. I did look at the plans, and at first they had it down in that preserved marshy area at the end of our street of Fairview. Do you know where Dutch Creek Bay is? The original plans were down there. And then they moved over to, and this is all their private website, right? So nothing that the village has anything to do with. Then they moved to the property off of Chapel Hill Road, right off the bridge. And they would have to redo the seawall completely. And then there would be like, almost like when you're pulling in and out of a highway, like you pull off to the side and access this water zone where all the slips and stuff would be completely pulled off the river, to probably avoid how chaotic it gets right there, because it's the busiest and choppiest part of the water.
That's terrible.
And then the whole entire boat ramp would also be moved off of the river behind the seawall. And so their development looks really cool from that part, or that perspective. But that type of business, or what else is going in over there, or what they're proposing, I'm on the fence as far as if that will serve Johnsburg, or if that's something that we would want there ourselves. It looks really, really cool. The car cave concept is kind of like, you can have your car in it and you can work on it. It's like your garage, your workshop away from home for your like fancy classic car. That's what they do down in the, like near the city. But this would also be for your boat. You can pull your boat in and out of the water right on site, and then you can pull your boat into your cave, or whatever you want to call it, your port, your storage. And you can have your hangout and your bar area, your bathroom, your couches, your football game on, or whatever during the summertime, baseball. And so it looks cool. I don't know how big it is. I don't know what else is gonna go on. They're proposing a restaurant.
That's a great thing. As we see more plans come out, I think that's, we as a community
Yeah.
need to get involved with that as
I just wanna let you guys know that I knew a little bit about it.
So, I'm gonna ask one last question. I know the phone's dying here, not great dialogue, we don't wanna cut the technology. So I'm gonna ask one last question. Is there anything else us voters need to know about you guys that maybe we haven't been able to talk about today that you guys wanna share?
Yeah, I put most of my business out there. I don't know, I'm pretty upfront with everything that I do, and and maybe something I don't reflect on enough is my involvement. The question I get a lot, right, for my candidacy is, will I have time to do it, and what time does that take away from my family? And that's probably not something I dive deep enough into, is how much time I do make for my family and spend with my family, and I don't think that that's always reflected in everything I do. But if you see me coach football, I've had my daughter strapped to my chest, my 13-year-old daughter, obviously my 1 year. I keep her close, not that close. You know, but she's 6 months old and she was helping me coach football games out there, right? So I don't think my family is not an excuse for the things that I do or don't do. They're the reason for it. So that's something I don't feel as I reflect back on everything I put out there that I don't put out there enough. So that would really be my response there.
And I would just reiterate, my commitment, how much I actually care about our community and all of us that are part of it. And I really do feel like we're just like a big family, although, sometimes we disagree, as Charlie said, so.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I said it earlier, but I'll say it again, my whole life is in the village of Johnsburg, right? I mean, my businesses are here, my family is here, my home's here, obviously. But I want to see it succeed. I want to see it become the best that it can be, and have the residents that have elected me to be here for this last 8 years feel the same exact way. And is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not, right? But there are a lot of things that we can do to move us in that direction, and I feel like I can continue to do that. So that's and at the same time, I'm not willing to be told what I should and should not do because of how somebody's opinions are. So I would like to continue to do that because that's what I feel that as a good citizen I should be doing.
Well, then I think thank you guys for telling us about what your future plans are and what our desire, and hope everybody goes out April 1st and votes. I'm fully excited to see some positive things come with you. Thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you guys very, very much.